Chapter 52-65. In terms of might, the 2 true Chi-core fire bombs were already the limits of what he could produce. Throwing 2 at once was no joke. If it were a spirit beast at the level of the primordial Gomon King, it would definitely die. Although the water lily protector in front of him was in existence at the same level as the brain-eating worm and was much stronger than the ancient Gomon King, it was obviously a skill-based spirit beast. In theory, it would not have a thick skin like the brain-eating worm. Perhaps the difficulty in dealing with it was to find its main body. Perhaps its main body was not much stronger than its avatar, and 2 real cheap pill fire bombs could easily deal with it. As a result, the water lily protector showed a contemptuous smile on its face. It seemed to have made up its mind to open Lin Yi's eyes. Seeing this, it did not dodge or counterattack, but let the 2 real cheap pill fire bombs hit its body. Lin Yi and Duanmu Yu's eyes widened at the same time. However, the next moment, the expected earth-shattering explosion did not appear. They only saw 2 faint ripples flash on the surface of the water lily protector's body, and then the 2 real cheap pill fire bombs disappeared. They did not even make the slightest noise, becoming 2 complete duds. Lin Yi was stunned for a moment. This was the first time someone had used this method to neutralize the real cheap pill fire bombs. It was the same way as the 5 elements murderous chi attack. This water lily protector was really unbeatable. Now you know the gap between you and me. The water lily protector smiled mysteriously. Lin Yi was silent for a moment, then suddenly said, "This is the old well of tranquility." Oh. I didn't expect a human like you to not only be smart, but also so knowledgeable. You actually know about my old well of tranquility. The water lily protector could not help but be a little surprised. It's nothing. When you were fighting with the brain-eating worm at the banquet, I just happened to hear the brain-eating worm mention this word, Lin Yi said lightly. I see. Since you have seen my strength, what are you going to do next? The water lily protector had a playful look on his face. Well, Your Excellency's strength is extraordinary. Not only do you have an almost unsolvable illusory space, but you also have a helpless defense like the old well of tranquility. With these 2 divine skills, Your Excellency can dominate an area. Lin Yi said truthfully. That's right. Before the Lord came here, I was the #1 overlord of this place. Only that of the talented of the insect could slightly compete with me. Even if all of the other big and small spirit beasts were added together, I could kill them as I pleased. The water lily protector said proudly. Since Your Excellency is so powerful, why are you willing to submit to that Lord's subordinates? You are nominally a protector, but in fact, you are just a lackey. Lin Yi asked. The water lily protector suddenly fell silent. After a long time, she came back to her senses and said mockingly, "Human, don't waste your time. Whether you want to find out about that Lord from me or sow discord between me and that Lord, it's all in vain. I'm not an idiot who only has muscles and no brains. I won't be fooled so easily. All right." Lin Yi was a little disappointed. This primordial trial ground was full of danger. Compared to the water lily protector and the brain-eating insect, the primordial Gomon King and the others were considered easy to deal with. However, the biggest threat still came from that omnipresent Lord. An existence that could control the water lily protector and the brain-eating insect was definitely not to be underestimated. If he could not find a way to figure out that Lord's background, even if he could successfully escape this time, he would still be on tenterhooks in the future. Enough with the nonsense. I'll now give you one last chance to back out. Human, think carefully before you answer me. Are you going to accept my offer and become my assistant, or choose to die here? The water lily protector said solemnly. I've thought it through very clearly. I won't be your assistant, nor will I die here. I have a third option. Lin Yi smiled faintly. A third option. Interesting. I'd like to hear where you got the third option. The water lily protector's eyes narrowed into slits. Lin Yi thought carefully and suddenly smiled apologetically. I'm sorry, I miscalculated. To be precise, there should be a third and fourth option. A third and a fourth. The water lily protector was stunned for a moment and said disdainfully, all right, then explain to me what the third and fourth options are. As the saying goes, it's impolite not to reciprocate. Since Your Excellency thinks so highly of me and has given me two options, then I have to give Your Excellency two options in return. One is for me to kill you, and the other is for me to subdue you. What do you think, Your Excellency? Lin Yi smiled and said tit for tat. Kill me. Subdue me. Ha 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 ha. The water lily protector did not get angry. Instead, she laughed so hard that she could not control herself. After a long time, she barely stopped laughing and said playfully, interesting, very interesting. Humans are indeed very interesting creatures. You are a typical example. Is that interesting? Lin Yi squinted at her and smiled faintly. Of course it's interesting. If you met an ant and told you that it wanted to kill you and subdue you, wouldn't you find it interesting? The water lily protector laughed. Lin Yi's performance just now was indeed impressive, but it was at most a little smarter than ordinary people. It could not change his weak ant nature. From the beginning to the end, the water lily protector did not treat him as a real opponent. He was just a fun toy. Haven't you heard of this saying, sir? Lin Yi smiled. What is it? The water lily protector asked curiously. You can't judge a book by its cover. Lin Yi said lightly. You can't judge a book by its cover. It's a good thing to be ambitious, but unfortunately, no matter how ambitious you are, you can't change the lowly nature of an ant. You should know very well that I am the master of this place. It is easy for me to kill you, but... The water lily protector paused and said with a disdainful look, don't say that I'm bullying you. I'll give you a chance to see how you kill me and subdue me. Duan Miyu looked at Lin Yi nervously. From her point of view, the water lily protector was almost invincible. Even if it did not attack and just stood there and let you attack it, there was nothing you could do to it. Not to mention anything else, just its calmness alone was enough to make people shrink back. Chapter 52-66. Duanmu Yu really couldn't think of how to deal with such an unbeatable opponent. However, Lin Yi seemed to have a card up his sleeve. The water lotus protector was looking down on him, but his attitude at the moment was as if he was going to defeat the other party. Such an expression really puzzled the water lotus protector. Where did this human's confidence come from? Before that, I want to say something else. The water lotus is one of many plants, so what's the difference between you and those elixirs? Lin Yi suddenly asked. Hearing this, the water lotus protector was confused at first, but then he laughed out loud. That's right, if I didn't have the opportunity to cultivate to this stage, I can only be considered a spirit medicine. Otherwise, why would I spend so much effort to create 100 herb garden? Those are all of my race. If the opportunity is good enough, maybe the next me will appear among them. Oh, then I'm relieved. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Relieved? Relieved about what? Not only the water lotus protector, but even Duanmuyu also had a puzzled look on her face. What was Lin Yi up to? In the end, Lin Yi waved his hand, and then nothing happened. Pretending to be mysterious. The water lotus protector sneered. Duanmuyu looked at Lin Yi and didn't know what to say. Since Lin Yi was so confident, she thought that he would have to use his trump card. At the very least, the power would be much stronger than the real cheap pill fire bomb just now. Otherwise, how could he deal with the water lotus protector? She never thought that Lin Yi would be so calm and collected from the beginning to the end, but there was no movement at all. How could this be tolerated? Lin Yi didn't feel embarrassed at all. Instead, he said indifferently, "Do you really think I didn't do anything?" It was only then that Duanmuyut suddenly reacted and subconsciously exclaimed, "How did I become a primordial spirit?" Although the moon's reflection was an illusion, it trapped their true bodies. There was no such thing as extracting their primordial spirits. Duanmuyu was still fine until just now, but in the blink of an eye, he had become a primordial spirit. "Sorry, in order to make it easier for you to watch the show, I took the initiative to drag you in. Don't worry, it'll be fine." Lin Yi turned his head and explained apologetically. "Oh, nothing." Duanmuyu still didn't quite understand what was going on, but since it was Lin Yi who did it, she had nothing to worry about. Unknowingly, Lin Yi had established a rather reliable impression in her mind. It was really rare to see someone who could make her trust him so subconsciously. At the same time, the water lotus protector on the other side was completely stunned and couldn't say a word for a long time. Duanmuyu did not know what was going on, but it had clearly sensed the source of the problem. Of course, it was different from Duanmuyu. Duanmuyu was now a primordial spirit, while it was still in its main body. What did you do? Why can't I sense the other mirror worlds?" The water lotus protector finally revealed a look of shock. This was the first time it had lost its confidence in controlling everything. Although what Lin Yi had done had surprised it, it couldn't change anything. It was just like how Sun Wukong could never escape the palm of the Buddha no matter how hard he tried. But this time, it was different. The Buddha felt that it couldn't protect it anymore. The mirror world was still the same mirror world, and it didn't feel like it had changed at all. However, the problem was that this mirror world had been isolated into another space, and it, the cause of this, could do nothing about it. "Isn't that simple? It's because I've broken your mirror image." Lin Yi smiled mysteriously. "Impossible. Absolutely impossible." The water lotus protector refused to believe it. There was only a difference of one word between breaking, and the meaning was very similar. However, it was a completely different concept. Deciphering mirrored flowers, reflected moon meant that one only needed to find the principles and flaws of reflected moon's mirrored flowers, reflected moon's movement. It was very difficult, but it was not completely impossible. As long as one's insight was strong enough, it was possible. Not to mention that it was absolutely impossible. There was once an existence who had done this, but that was the only one so far. It was the Lord who was above the water lotus protector, the brain-eating bug, and all the other big and small spirit beasts. Apart from the Lord, it couldn't imagine anyone else who could do this. Even the intelligent human in front of it couldn't do it. After all, the difference in strength between them was too great. This was not something that could be done through trickery. However, if it wasn't for breaking it, how could all this be explained now? It doesn't matter if you don't believe me, but as the host, I still have to say hello. Welcome to my world. Lin Yi bowed politely. Your world. The water lotus protector and Duanmuyu spoke almost in unison this time. What was going on? This was clearly the mirror world just now. How did it inexplicably become his world? However, they quickly understood, because the mirror world was instantly dismembered and shattered, collapsing with a loud bang. What did you say just now? In your mirror world, you're the unique master. I'm sorry to borrow it, but now it's my world, and I'm the only master here. Lin Yi said with a chuckle. His words were very pretentious, even more so than the water lotus protector just now. However, with this shocking scene as a foil, neither Duanmuyu nor the water lotus protector felt that he was pretentious at all. Instead, they felt that he was speaking the truth. In particular, the Water Lotus Protector was far more shocked than Duanmuyu at this moment. One must know that even if the moon's mirror image was broken, the remaining mirror world was still real. Moreover, because his main body was residing in it, this was the one with the strongest control over all the mirror worlds. In the end, this most secure mirror world collapsed in an instant right under his nose. He didn't even have the slightest ability to resist. This kind of shock and horror was simply unparalleled. You. Who are you? The Water Lotus Protector was no longer calm. At this moment, the way he looked at Lin Yi was no longer condescending and contemptuous. Instead, it was filled with unprecedented fear. I am me, Lin Yi replied. And then? The Water Lotus Protector continued to ask. Lin Yi tilted his head and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he said, are they fireworks of different colors? Chapter 52-67. Could it be that you've already mastered the laws of the world? A thought flashed through the water lily's mind. Lin Yi had just destroyed its mirror world. Now that it thought about it, it was clear that he had used another physical world to directly crush its illusory mirror world. Apart from this unverifiable legend, it could not think of any other possibility for someone to be able to do this. What are the laws of the world? Lin Yi was stunned by the water lily's question. Aren't they? The water lily was stunned as well. Duanmuyu, who was at the side, was confused. What were these two talking about? You can tell me. Maybe it is. Lin Yi was rather interested in this term that he had never heard of before. I must have been mistaken. It's just an illusory legend. There are no laws of the world at all. You must have used some evil method that cannot see the light of day. That must be it. The water lily hurriedly corrected itself. You're even trying to provoke me. Since you want to know so much, I'll be merciful and tell you. Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, this space is the world that I control. I don't know what the laws of the world are, but in this space, I can divide it into as many pieces as I want. It was just a thought of mine to dismember your mirror world. This was not a lie. To put it bluntly, Lin Yi had actually kept it in the space of his jade pendant. Although he was its master in name, Lin Yi actually only had the simplest method to control the space of the jade pendant, which was to divide the space. However, it was this simple and brainless method that could produce fatal power at this time. Crushing the water lily's mirror world was just a piece of cake. If Lin Yi really wanted to try, it would probably be easy for him to dismember the water lily itself. How did you get me in here? The water lily was still skeptical. It still hoped that this was Lin Yi's bluff. If that was the case, it would still have a chance to turn the tables. Otherwise, if it was really as Lin Yi said, it would really be at his mercy. Oh, didn't you say it yourself? You're just an elixir. This place of mine may not be very convenient for other things, but it is very accurate for collecting spiritual herbs. To put it bluntly, it is the absolute nemesis of existences like you. Seeing that you did not directly kill me just now, I advise you to quickly accept your fate. That way, you will be able to suffer less physical pain. Lin Yi chuckled. This was where Lin Yi's confidence came from. No matter how invincible the water lily was, as long as it was a plant, it was destined to be easily taken into the space of the jade pendant. Once it entered the space of the jade pendant, it would be Lin Yi's territory, so there was nothing to be afraid of. The water lily also knew that the situation was not good, but it would not be so easily frightened. Even if the moonlight reflection, which it was most proud of, had been completely broken, it still had the rippleless ancient well. No matter where and when it was, it would be invincible. Most importantly, its strength was at least 10 levels higher than that of Lin Yi. What was there for it to be afraid of? Human, you're too naive. You want me to accept my fate just like that? Why should I? The water lily sneered. Taking advantage of the moment when Lin Yi was distracted, it did not hesitate to launch its sneak attack. 4 doppelgangers attacked Lin Yi at the same time. Although the strength of these doppelgangers was not enough to deal with a powerful existence like the brain-eating insect, it was enough to deal with Lin Yi. Seeing this scene, Duan Muyu's heart suddenly jumped to her throat. Things had developed to this point, and she thought that she could breathe a sigh of relief. She did not expect the water lily to launch a sneak attack without any grace. It seemed that she was really desperate. In the end, in the face of all this, Lin Yi did not move at all. He did not even blink. The opponent's 4 doppelgangers could not get close to him at all. With just a thought, they were isolated in a separate space. No matter how they struggled, it was futile. Again, in this space, Lin Yi was the only master. The water lily was instantly dumbfounded, but it still did not believe it. This time, its entire body turned into a human form, and it pounced on Lin Yi like a madman. Unfortunately, the result was the same as its 4 doppelgangers. No matter how hard it struggled, it could not break out of the isolated space that Lin Yi had drawn out for it. Idiot, weren't you very arrogant just now? Seeing this, Lin Yi thought playfully. Up until now, the opponent had been playing with him and Duan Muyu in the palm of its hand. Now, it was time to change positions. How could this be? The water lily used all of its means, but it still could not move. This time, even if it did not give up, there was nothing it could do. The key was that it had finally confirmed one thing. This was actually a real physical space. Just thinking about the meaning behind it made one shudder. Its background was even more terrifying than that of the Lord. Who was this human? Looking at this guy who was panting, Lin Yi smiled without saying a word. He thought to himself that it was fortunate that he had such a jade pendant space, which was just enough to eat the opponent to death. Otherwise, he really would not be able to do anything to this guy, and he would really be in trouble today. On the other hand, Duan Muyu, who was at the side, did not understand what was going on. The image of Lin Yi in her mind had become extremely unfathomable. He had all kinds of magical methods, and it was really hard to fathom. You shameless adulterers. Don't go too far. The water lily pointed at Lin Yi and Duan Muyu in exasperation. Go too far. Isn't that a bit too much? Since you treated us like this just now, I'll do the same to you now. It's just locking you up. I haven't even sliced you up to study you yet. You're still far from going too far. Take your time. Lin Yi said calmly. Slicing me up to study me. The water lily was so shocked that its eyelids twitched. If it was before, it would not have taken such shameless and stupid words seriously. But now, it could not. In its eyes, Lin Yi was a legendary existence who could control space. If he really wanted to slice it up, it would probably only take a thought. That's right. From the perspective of elixirs, you're a rare treasure in this world. You can probably sell for a sky-high price after you're sliced, Lin Yi threatened with a smile. Hee hee. Chapter 52-68. Plead with me. Duan Muyu pointed at herself in surprise and spread out her hands in amusement. Are you sure you didn't find the wrong person? I didn't create this space. It's not up to me to say what he wants to do. What's the use of pleading with me? It's useful. It's definitely useful. You're his woman. In order to save you, he didn't hesitate to risk his life. It can be seen that you hold a very important position in his heart. Your words will definitely work. Madam, please save me. The water lotus protector begged for mercy. What nonsense are you talking about? Duan Muyu frowned. She knew very well that Lin Yi had stayed behind to deal with the Water Lotus Protector, not for her. Even if he had the intention to save her, it would only be a supplementary reason, and definitely not the main purpose. At this time, Lin Yi suddenly smiled and said, "Since you've said so, then I might as well tell you something. Do you know what happened to those guys who fought with me for a woman?" "How? How was it?" the Water Lotus Protector asked weakly. "There are countless of them. Some lost their lives, some lost their family jewels, and some twisted their worldview to become neither human nor ghost. Which one do you think you are? Anyway, I'm a good person. Heroes have a weakness for beauties. Usually, I'm very easy to talk to, but once someone fights with me for a woman, I can't do it. To be honest, when I go crazy, even I'm afraid of myself." Lin Yi said casually with a serious expression. The Water Lotus Protector didn't know whether he was talking nonsense or telling the truth. Her eyes wandered back and forth between Lin Yi and Duan Muyu. At this time, she was so regretful that even her roots were turning green. Of all the things she could have done, she had to find Duan Muyu on a whim. This time, not only did she not succeed in the dual cultivation, she was about to die. Human. "Oh no, Senior, I really didn't know that she was your woman at first. Don't you have a saying that the ignorant are innocent? Since I didn't kill you before, and I didn't really dual cultivate with her, please spare me this time." The Water Lotus Protector bowed and begged for mercy. "Don't spout nonsense." Duan Muyu suddenly blushed. She didn't know if it was because she was shy when she heard the word dual cultivation, or because she was called Lin Yi's woman. With her usual style, this kind of girlish expression could be regarded as unprecedented. The water lily wanted to argue, but Lin Yi didn't give it the chance. Of course, he didn't get rid of it either. Instead, he isolated it and locked it up. Then, he took Duan Muyu's soul and left the space in the jade pendant. The moonlight in the mirror had been broken, and the Water Lily Protector was also locked up. After the two of them came out, they naturally returned to the real world, and Duan Muyu's primordial spirit naturally returned to his main body. The big tent was still the same big tent, and the scene in front of him was still the same. However, after wandering in so many mirror worlds for so long, even Duan Muyu could clearly feel the difference. Even if every place was exactly the same, the real world obviously gave people a more realistic feeling. No matter how realistic the mirror world was, it was still an illusion, and could never create this unique feeling of reality. However, Duan Muyu was still a little worried. He was afraid that this was another mirror world that was more realistic. When he walked out of the big tent and saw the big and small spirit beasts outside, he finally relaxed. After all, the mirror world did not have these guys. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. "I'm finally back. It's illusory and real at the same time. It feels like a nightmare. Hee, nightmares will always wake up one day." Lin Yi laughed. Duan Muyu glanced at him and said gratefully, "But if it wasn't for you, this nightmare might never wake up. This time, I really want to thank you." "Don't mention it. We both took what we needed." Lin Yi shook his head. He did not deal with the water lily entirely for Duan Muyu. He was just afraid that this guy would find Cold and the others and lead the brain-eating insect to them. "Still, I have to thank you," Duan Muyu said seriously. No matter what Lin Yi's motive was, it was a fact that he had saved her. Duan Muyu was never an ungrateful person, and she had to remember this favor. While the two were talking, a patrol bee flew over and looked up and down at Lin Yi. "Who are you? Why are you with my madam?" "Well, in the words of your master, your madam and I are adulterers," Lin Yi said mischievously. Duanmu could not help but blush when she heard this. She glared at Lin Yi reproachfully, but in her heart, she was smiling. Previously, she only thought that Lin Yi was unfathomable, but she did not expect him to have a joking temper. Adulterer. The patrol bee took a long time to understand the meaning of these words. It immediately attracted all the other patrol bees around them. They surrounded Lin Yi and Duanmu and said aggressively, "How dare you? How dare you make my master a cuckold? Everyone, let's tear this adulterer into pieces. As for the madam, master will deal with her personally." The group of patrol bees was about to attack, but Lin Yi smiled faintly. "Wait, aren't you going to ask what happened to your master?" As soon as these words came out, the group of patrol bees was stunned and looked at each other. Yes, shouldn't master stay in the big tent and cultivate with the madam? Why didn't master do anything when this pair of adulterers escaped from inside? With the usual cruel style of the water lily, they did not think that their master would be so lenient to the point of being indifferent to being cuckolded, unless, thinking of this, the group of patrol bees were all shocked, but then they immediately threw this absurd idea out of their minds. Master was the guardian of that lord, a powerful existence that was second only to one and above tens of thousands of people. How could he fail miserably because of a mere human? But if that was not the case, how could there be no reaction at all? At this time, a weak voice suddenly sounded from behind, "Not good. Master must have been killed by them. This human is very scary, he almost killed me with a single look just now." All the patrol bees turned around and saw that the one who spoke was Kappa. To them, Kappa was one of their own, so they didn't doubt him at all. Kappa's strength wasn't much weaker than them, but this human almost killed Kappa with just a glance. This was something that even their master couldn't do. Chapter 52-69. Lin Yi looked at Kappa playfully. It seemed that this guy had been holding a grudge against Protector Water Lotus for a long time. It was obvious that he wanted to see the world in chaos by saying such words. However, it was not surprising. The Kappa clan had been destroyed by Protector Water Lotus, and the Holy Water Bead, the clan's most precious treasure, had been taken away. It would be strange if Kappa did not bear a grudge against him. Master is dead. Everyone, run. Kappa was the first to take the lead to escape. The rest of the patrol bees were also frightened when they saw this. After looking at each other, they turned around and fled without hesitation, no longer caring about anything else. Their hatred for their master, Protector Water Lotus, was not far from the hatred of the extermination of Kappa's clan. Just because of a casual word from Protector Water Lotus, they would kill each other. They only feared such a master, and would never have the slightest bit of loyalty. Just a little instigation would naturally cause a disaster to befall them and they would flee. With Kappa and the patrol bees as an example, the other slave-like spirit beasts also fled with a loud bang. In the blink of an eye, only Lin Yi and Duanmu were left looking at each other speechlessly. However, this was also good. It saved them a lot of trouble. Although with Lin Yi's strength, he would not care about these spirit beasts, they were still a small problem. This time, it was solved by Kappa with a few words, so he had to give it a thumbs up. After a moment of silence, Duanmu suddenly asked, "What happened just now?" "You mean that Kappa? It was talking nonsense. I can kill it with one look. I'm not a god." Lin Yi laughed. "That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what's going on with that strange space earlier. Why was my primordial spirit brought in and even that guy was completely suppressed?" Duanmu asked. This question had been in her heart for a long time, but she could not ask it in front of Protector Water Lotus. Now that there was no one around, she really could not hold it in anymore. About that, Lin Yi couldn't help but hesitate. Just now, He was afraid that leaving Duanmuyu alone would cause problems, so he took the opportunity to bring her soul into the space of the jade pendant. But this was one of his core secrets, and he absolutely could not reveal it to outsiders. After today's incident, although Duanmuyu could be regarded as a life-and-death friend of his, it was not to the extent that he could absolutely trust his own people. He didn't dare to reveal this to the other party. Seeing his hesitation, Duanmuyu knew that this matter could not be easily disclosed to her. However, she had always been a person who would get to the bottom of things and never let sand in her eyes. If this matter was not cleared up, she was afraid that she would worry about it for the rest of her life. It might even become a knot in his heart that would negatively affect his future cultivation. Didn't you say I'm your woman? Don't tell me you can't even tell your woman about this. Duanmuyu suddenly blushed. Ah. Lin Yi suddenly choked, and couldn't help but look up and down at Duanmuyu strangely. He saw that although the other party's face was slightly red, her expression was quite calm, as if she had already gotten over it. Being stared at by Lin Yi at such a close distance, although Duanmuyu was a heroine, her heart couldn't help but pound, and a strange thought suddenly flashed through her mind. Could this be the legendary feeling of being hit by a deer? What? What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? Duanmuyu stared back at Lin Yi, unwilling to be outdone. I'm sorry about that. I just said that to annoy that guy. Don't take it to heart. Lin Yi couldn't help but scratch his head awkwardly. At that time, when he said this, he didn't think it through and said it casually. Now that he thought about it, it was too abrupt. This was also because Duanmuyu was more open-minded, otherwise, it would be very awkward for other women. So I've misunderstood. Duanmuyu looked at him deeply, and said with a somewhat complicated expression, all right, since that's the case, how about we make a deal? A deal? What kind of deal? Lin Yi was stunned. Didn't you want to know about rejuvenation of withered leaf? I can explain the essence of this move to you. In return, you have to tell me what's going on in that space just now. How about that? Duanmuyu suggested. Isn't rejuvenation of withered leaf a secret move of your Yiling sect? Lin Yi was surprised. According to the ancestral teachings, rejuvenation of withered leaf can't be taught to outsiders. However, our Yiling sect has always been clear about gratitude and grudges. Since you saved me, I can make an exception this time, Duanmuyu said. If one were to think about it carefully, her words might not hold water. Even if she wanted to repay Lin Yi for saving her life, she didn't have to tell him the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaf. She could have used other methods. However, she was the eldest senior sister of the Yiling sect. According to the Yiling sect's rules, as long as one's strength increased by one level, they would be the next sect leader. Even if she did that, the higher-ups of the sect wouldn't do anything to her. What if I'm a blabbermouth and spread the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaf? Lin Yi asked. Rejuvenation of withered leaf was a trump card for the entire Yiling sect. Probably only the most core disciples in the sect had the opportunity to cultivate it. If word got out and people studied it and targeted it, the consequences would be unimaginable. Duanmuyu looked at him deeply, and said with certainty, you won't. All right, since you trust me so much, then I'll do as you say. Lin Yi smiled. Aren't you afraid that I'll spread your secret? Duanmuyu asked. You won't. Lin Yi returned her words. Although they weren't very familiar with each other, a person's nature could be seen in a life-and-death situation. Just like how Duanmuyu trusted him, he also believed that Duanmuyu wasn't a despicable person. Otherwise, he wouldn't have brought Duanmuyu's primordial spirit in without hesitation. Actually, from that moment onwards, he had already revealed his secret to Duanmuyu without holding anything back. Duanmuyu blushed slightly when she heard that. As the eldest senior sister of the Yiling sect, the number of times she blushed today was more than the number of times she had blushed in the past 10 years combined. Even she found it a little strange. She kept blushing for no reason. Was she having a fever? But I'll say this first. I can only tell you the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaf, but I won't tell you the method to cultivate it. Is that all right? Duan Miyu tossed aside the random thoughts in her mind and returned to the topic at hand. Although it was very troublesome for the essence to be leaked, if there was no method to cultivate it, then at least it could ensure that others wouldn't be able to cultivate rejuvenation of withered leaf for a short period of time. That way, the sex trump card wouldn't have to be used on their own people. Chapter 5270. Alright, the essence of rejuvenation of withered leaves is only one thing, and that is to open the hidden door of life, Duan Miyu said slowly. The hidden door of life. Lin Yi was slightly stunned. Do you know that all the mental cultivation methods and moves of our leaf spirit sect come from the same source? They all originate from the most ordinary yet most extraordinary thing in the world. Duan Miyu enlightened him. Leaf. Lin Yi's eyes lit up. This was not difficult to guess. The name of the leaf spirit sect explained everything. Moreover, all its representative moves had the word leaf in them, such as the falling leaves signifying autumn, a leaf like a mountain, and the rejuvenation of withered leaves. That's right, it's a leaf. The birth of a leaf and the fall of a leaf represent the reincarnation of the world. When people see a green leaf, they will see vitality, and when they see a withered leaf, they will see death. However, they don't know that the two reinforce and counteract each other. A green leaf can also have a killing intent, and a withered leaf can also have a day of rejuvenation. At this point, Duan Miyu paused, took out a withered yellow leaf from his arms, and handed it to Lin Yi. Feel it. Lin Yi took the withered leaf and looked at it for a while. It was different from what he had expected. There was nothing unusual on it, nor was there any hidden spiritual energy. This was just an ordinary withered leaf. However, after thinking about Duan Miyu's words for a while, Lin Yi suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Do you mean that there is vitality on this withered leaf that ordinary people can't see? When Duan Miyu heard this, a surprised expression immediately appeared on his face. This guy's comprehension ability was a little too abnormal. When he first obtained the withered leaf, it took him an entire day to understand this principle. Compared to other disciples of the same sect, this was considered fast. Some people could spend an entire month trying to understand it but still couldn't understand it. They didn't even have the qualifications to practice withered leaf rejuvenation. Of course, after witnessing the entire process of Lin Yi cracking the mirror world just now, Duan Miyu was not too surprised by this. Comprehension was closely related to insight. For a person like Lin Yi who had extremely abnormal insight, his comprehension would naturally not be weak. That's right. Although the leaf has withered, it's not really dead. There's still a strong vitality hidden in it. It's just that it's temporarily sealed because of the environment. As long as we can open this sealed door of vitality, it will be able to regain its vitality, which is the withered leaf that you saw earlier, Duan Miyu explained. Lin Yi nodded. These words were not difficult to understand. Lin Yi was saying that when a person was exhausted, it seemed that he had reached his limit, but in fact, it was just an instinctive self-defense mechanism of the human body. He was not really at the point of exhaustion. Then how do we open this sealed door of life? Lin Yi asked. This was the crux of the problem. Duan Miyu was silent for a moment and said, you only need to do two things. One is to hypnotize yourself, and the other is to use your true qi to pierce the acupoints. Strictly speaking, her words had already pointed out the cultivation method. She could not say anything more. Otherwise, it would be tantamount to personally teaching Lin Yi to practice the withered leaf rejuvenation. Even if she was the eldest senior sister of Yiling's sect, she did not have this right. However, Lin Yi did not need her to say more at all. With Lin Yi's comprehension, these 2 sentences were enough. As for what to do next, he could completely rely on himself to figure it out, and there was no need to put Duanmuyu in a difficult position. Thank you. Lin Yi cupped his hands and thanked her. He asked this purely for reference research because he had not tried it before. At the moment, he did not know how much value he could dig out from it. However, one thing was certain. What she said was indeed profound and worth pondering. Now can you tell me about you? Duanmuyu said with great anticipation. Well, as you saw just now, I have a private space. As long as I think about it, I can easily put things in the real world, but only plants and some ordinary items. As for humans, I can't. Of course, the primordial spirit can go in. Lin Yi explained. As for how this space came about, he could not elaborate. After all, on the one hand, it was related to his life experience, and on the other hand, he only heard it from Lin Dongfang. He did not know much about it. Private space. Even though Duanmuyu had seen it with her own eyes, she was still stunned when she heard this word at this time. This kind of thing had never been heard of or seen before. Perhaps even the old monsters in the Yuanying realm in the remote ancient Jianghu did not have such an artifact. He could not help but be surprised and confused. Who the hell are you? Lin Yi could not help but roll his eyes. The water lotus protector had such a reaction, and Duanmuyu also had such a reaction. He had to be patient and said, I'm not a saint. I'm just a lump of primordial spirit. Are you really just a primordial senior of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island? Duanmuyu did not believe it and questioned, but why are your moves completely different from those of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island? They're not the same at all. From the remote ancient Jianghu to the present, the time span was too long. Even if it was passed down from the same sect, there would inevitably be a lot of changes in the mental cultivation methods and moves, but it would not be completely different. It was almost equivalent to setting up a new sect. The 3 sects of the North Island were recognized as the sects with the most historical inheritance in the remote ancient Jianghu. In the records, there had never been a major disaster such as the extermination of the whole sect, so it was impossible for there to be such a big deviation in the inheritance of the most basic mental cultivation methods and moves. There could only be 2 explanations. One was that Lin Yi had learned too many things and formed his own sect. The other was that Lin Yi was not the primordial senior of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island at all. Yiling's sect paid the most attention to the instinctive perception in the subconscious. As the eldest senior sister of Yiling's sect, Duanmuyu was naturally second to none in this aspect. A woman's intuition was very accurate, and her intuition was far above most women's. Her intuition told her that Lin Yi should belong to the latter, because Lin Yi did not look like an ancient primordial senior at all. He should be a real young man, and his real age was very likely to be much younger than her. Oh, I've never been one. Lin Yi said honestly. Ha! Then why do they all call you Martial Granduncle? Duanmuyu said in surprise. If it was those ordinary disciples of the Blue Cloud sect in the North Island who admitted it, they were relatively easy to be deceived. But Xanijia was a master in the gold core stage. How could Lin Yi deceive him? It's a long story. Although I'm not their real martial granduncle, we do have this connection. It's not wrong for them to call me martial granduncle. Lin Yi smiled. Since they had come to this point, he might as well make it clear. He said, you know Heaven Stage Island, right? Chapter 5271. Well, I can tell you that the Heaven Stage Island really exists, because I came back from the Heaven Stage Island. Lin Yi said frankly. There was no need to hide this kind of thing, because even if he didn't say it himself, someone could find out the whole story from other cultivators in the secular world. There was no way to hide it at all. Is that true? Duan Miyu was completely stunned. The impact of Lin Yi's words was even greater than the space of the jade pendant, because it almost subverted the worldview that she had cultivated since she was a child. The Heaven Stage Island that only appeared in the legends actually existed. After she digested it for a while, Lin Yi continued, I went to the Heaven Stage Island from the secular world and joined the sect Blue Cloud Pavilion of the North Island. It should be the same sect as the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island of the small archaic Jianghu of the far ancient Jianghu, and its inheritance is more complete and more powerful. Therefore, to Axayan Ijia and the others, I'm naturally called Granduncle Master. Granduncle Axayan doesn't know about this. Duan Miyu asked. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Lin Yi said noncommittally. Axayan Ijia definitely didn't know at the beginning, but after so many months, if he wanted to inquire about Lin Yi, it should not be difficult for him to find out about Lin Yi's situation. He just didn't know why he didn't say it. Of course, whether for Axayan Ijia or the Blue Cloud sect of the North Island, it didn't matter whether Lin Yi was the real archaic Granduncle Master or not. What mattered was that he knew the complete advanced version of the mental cultivation method of their sect, which alone made him worthy of being called Granduncle Master. Well, it's really an eye-opener today. Duan Miyu let out a long breath. She was a little confused now. These things couldn't be digested without a few days, especially the Heaven Stage Island. She could only accept it slowly. By the way, what are you going to do next? Lin Yi asked. Of course I'm going to the River of Divine Senses, Duan Miyu said. Before this, she still wanted to wander around looking for treasures of heaven and earth, but now she had completely given up on this idea. Water Lily Protector alone could easily control her life and death. Now there was a large number of powerful spirit beasts including the brain-eating bug, and even an even more terrifying and mysterious lord outside. Wandering around alone was tantamount to courting death. Therefore, her only thought now was to find the River of Divine Senses to refine her divine senses and then quickly leave this troublesome place. After a pause, Duan Miyu asked, what about you? After a pause, Duan Miyu asked, what about you? But this place is so big, it's easier said than done to find them. Why don't we go to the River of Spiritual Knowledge together? I think Cold and the others must also be heading in the direction of the River of Spiritual Knowledge. In theory, yes, but I have a simpler method. Before Duan Miyu could ask, Chen Fan said. Lin Yi grinned meaningfully, then his figure flashed and disappeared. After a while, he reappeared, but there was a familiar figure beside him. It was Water Lily Protector. Duan Miyu jumped in fright. There was no doubt that the water lily was powerful, and it was only because of Lin Yi's jade space that he was able to suppress it so tightly. Now that it had escaped, wouldn't it be releasing a tiger back into the mountains? But to her surprise, the water lily didn't do anything after coming out, and just stood there obediently. It just stood there obediently with a bitter look on its face. Lin Yi smiled, don't worry, this is just a clone. Its main body is still trapped by me. If it dares to do anything, its main body will immediately die. It won't dare to do anything. Duan Miyu carefully looked at Water Lily Protector and saw that it was really scared like a quail. She shook her head speechlessly. Water Lily Protector was a powerful existence, but now it had been turned into such a state by Lin Yi. It was more than just a mess, it was a little pitiful. Why did you get it out? Duan Miyu asked. Isn't it known to be able to control every blade of grass and every tree on the ground? Since the brain-eating bug can get it to help, I can naturally do it too. I asked it to find Lang Lang and the others. If it can't find them, I'll kill it. Lin Yi said and pouted at Water Lily Protector, urging, "What are you waiting for? Hurry up." Yes, yes. Water Lily Protector nodded quickly. It had no choice but to lower its head. Its life was now completely in the hands of Lin Yi, so it had no choice but to obey him. Duanmu couldn't help but feel amused and speechless. It was really unlucky for the Water Lily Protector to meet such a big nemesis like Lin Yi. After a while, Water Lily Protector said cautiously, "I found them. They are approaching the River of Divine Knowledge, but soon they will encounter a spirit beast comparable to the early stage of Gold Core. They should encounter a lot of trouble." The early stage of Gold Core. Lin Yi frowned. With the strength of Lang Lang and the others, although it was not completely impossible to deal with a spirit beast of this level, it was indeed a big challenge. He immediately said, "Take us there." The implication was that Duanmu was also included, and Duanmu had no intention of objecting. Anyway, they were all heading in the direction of the River of Divine Knowledge. She was also happy to go with Lin Yi, so she could be his companion. The two immediately returned to the outside world through the tree-hole sky ladder. All they saw was the familiar primeval forest. However, as soon as Lin Yi's figure appeared at the entrance of the tree-hole, a surprised voice immediately came from the side, "Senior." "Senior Lin." Lin Yi heard the voice and looked over. The voice was none other than Fei Yongxing, who had been released earlier. He couldn't help but be a little surprised. "Why are you still here?" I don't dare to go around, so I just stayed here and waited for you to come out." Fei Yongxing rubbed his hands and smiled apologetically. This was the truth. It was not that he didn't want to go, but he really didn't dare to go around. With his strength, he didn't need to be like Water Lily Protector at all. Any spirit beast in the late stage of Foundation establishment would kill him. It was safer to hold on to Lin Yi. "Oh. Aren't you afraid that I can't defeat those spirit beasts?" Lin Yi was amused. Fei Yongxing was taking a risk by doing this. If he didn't wait for him but other spirit beasts, wouldn't he become a tribute? No, no, no. "Senior, you are so powerful. I believe you will definitely be fine." Fei Yongxing hurriedly flattered. In fact, he simply felt that Lin Yi was a spirit that came and went without a trace. Even if he couldn't defeat the other party, it would definitely be no problem for him to stay alive. Besides, he was quite confident in his hiding method, so he dared to stay. Chapter 52-72. Although you're not a very good person, you made the right bet. Duanmu, who had followed Lin Yi out, could not help but smile when he heard this. "Senior Sister Duanmu, you're safe and sound too. That's great." Fei Yongxing hurriedly nodded and bowed to greet them, but in the next moment, he saw the water lotus climbing out behind the two of them. His eyes suddenly widened, and he screamed, turned around, and ran away. However, after running a few steps, he realized that no one was chasing after him. He turned around and saw that Lin Yi and Duanmu were looking at him strangely, while the water lotus was standing behind them obediently. Fei Yongxing finally reacted. He scratched his head awkwardly and asked with a smile, "This is my new little brother." Lin Yi casually made up a story. Duanmu was amused, while the water lotus dared not say anything. "I'm just trapped by you. When did I become your little brother?" Fei Yongxing did not know the inside story, and he was immediately in awe. Although he had never seen magical techniques like the moon's reflection and the old well's rippleness, the water lotus was the leader of all the spirit beasts present. To him, it was a powerful existence that he could only look up to. Lin Yi was actually able to subdue such an existence. He was indeed remarkable. Senior is indeed a senior. You're too powerful. Fei Yongxing hurriedly squeezed out an expression of admiration. He then rubbed himself to the side and said to the water lotus, "Hello, brother spirit beast. My name is Fei Yongxing. From now on, we'll be on the same path. Please take care of me." Trash. The water lotus snorted with extreme disdain. He turned his head away and could not be bothered with this kind of trash. If it was not under the control of someone else, Fei Yongxing would have been crushed to death by a single finger. Fei Yongxing was rebuffed, but he did not feel embarrassed. He turned his head and continued to flatter Lin Yi. After all, Lin Yi was the one with the thick thighs. As long as he pleased Lin Yi, everything else could be discussed. They surrounded Lin Yi and followed him around, trying their best to flatter him. Even Duan Muyu could not stand it anymore. He frowned and said, "Aren't you annoying?" Fei Yongxing could only smile bitterly. He didn't want to do this, but what if Lin Yi thought he was a burden and dumped him if he didn't suck up to Lin Yi? How was he supposed to survive in a forest like this where danger lurked everywhere? "Alright, don't waste your energy. I don't like that kind of thing here. If you want to follow me, then follow me. Just don't cause me any trouble." Lin Yi curled his lips. Although he did not treat Fei Yongxing as one of his own, and he did not trust Fei Yongxing as much as Duan Muyu. After all, the latter could be regarded as a life-and-death friend, he was not so cruel as to leave Fei Yongxing behind and follow him. At the same time, just as Water Lily said, Cold and the others encountered a big problem. A giant black praying mantis that was as tall as two people blocked in front of them. A golden core stage spirit beast. Lang Lang quickly shielded Ling Shan and the others behind her. Her heart skipped a beat as she felt the ferocious aura coming from the enemy. They had been on the road for days. On the way, they met another 5 or 6 spirit beasts that blocked the way. Including Lang Lang, everyone wasn't in a good state. Their stamina, chi, and spirit were all used up. Especially Ying Ziyu, who got injured from a Foundation Establishment stage spirit beast last time. She hadn't fully recovered yet. But that time wasn't entirely Ziyu's fault. It was a dangerous situation, and they were surrounded by 2 spirit beasts. If it wasn't for her trying her best to buy time for Cold and the others, they might not even be able to make it out alive. One could only say that this place was just too dangerous, and without Lin Yi's protection, every second they stood here was a risk. If they could make it out of here alive, they would all be reborn. It wasn't just Ziyu. Ling Shan and the others were all injured as well. Now, they met a giant praying mantis that was as strong as a golden core stage. Even if the other party was only the weakest early gold core stage, it was definitely a fatal matter. What do we do? Everyone looked at Lang Lang in unison. Lang Lang was the strongest among them, and she had shown sufficient courage and responsibility in the past few days. Everyone had great trust in her. Even if they could not say that they would blindly follow her lead, she would definitely not go back on her word at critical moments. Kill! Lang Lang spat out fiercely, and her aura changed. She had the aura of iron and blood now. Her soft body stood in front of the praying mantis without hesitation, not backing down. Kill! 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 Ling Shan and the others roared in unison, their auras merging into one. The defensive formation Lin Yi had taught them was just a show a couple of days ago, but now it looked like it had reached a certain level of mastery. Life and death battles were the most motivating, and the saying wasn't wrong at all. Huff, a bunch of human scum like ants dares to challenge me. Where did you get the guts from? The praying mantis didn't have any expression on its insect face, but the mockery was obvious. It didn't care about Lang Lang at all. It's just a praying mantis, but it's quite arrogant. Tian grinned. You can't say that. It has some ability to be arrogant. After all, it's not easy for a praying mantis to grow this big. Who knows how many dirty things it ate to absorb so much nutrition? Fatty Lai chimed in with a smile. That's right. Such a big praying mantis looks very scary. Judging from its voice, it seems to be a male. In the future, the wedding night will be the time of its death. According to their customs, it will be eaten by the bride. How miserable. That's right. Yu Bing and the others all chimed in. It was hard to not be nervous in front of a strong enemy, and they were using this method to calm themselves down. They didn't want to make any mistakes later. Bullshit. You're talking about normal praying mantises, I'm the king mantis. How can I be eaten by a female praying mantis? The praying mantis was pissed off, and it couldn't care less about the mockery anymore. It waved its two side-like front limbs and charged at them. It didn't look fast, but its body was long, and its strides were long. With just 3 steps, it crossed a distance of 10 meters, and it arrived in front of Leng Leng. Its side-like front limbs turned into 2 black lightning bolts, and the speed of the attack was so fast that it created a sonic boom. Leng Leng was the first one to be attacked. Chapter 5273. Leng Leng did not dare to be negligent. She did not hold back at all. Before her opponent's side-like forelimbs slashed down vertically, she used her most powerful ice prison mirror without hesitation. Her surroundings were suddenly filled with extreme coldness. Her opponent's 2 black sides that were closest to her were instantly covered with a layer of ice crystals. Even his movements were significantly slower. Insects were creatures that were extremely afraid of the cold, and mantises were no exception. Even this black praying mantis, which was comparable to a golden core practitioner, had the weakest resistance to the cold. From a certain perspective, it was countered by Leng Leng's ice shatter physique. This was because of the difference in levels, and once Leng Leng broke through to golden core, it wouldn't be a threat at all. It was a pity that Leng Leng was only at foundation completion, and the ice prison mirror didn't freeze her completely. It only slowed the black praying mantis down by more than 70%. That was more than enough. Leng Leng took the chance to retreat and blend into the formation, using herself as the arrow. Third strategy. Understood. Everyone replied. What Lin Yi gave them was a typical defensive formation, but it wasn't a turtle shell that only defended and didn't attack. There were a few different strategies, and the third strategy was to move around and pin down the enemy. Defending passively would only put them at a disadvantage. Using offense as defense, moving around when the opportunity presented itself was even more invulnerable. With Leng Leng as the arrow, Ling Shan, Wu Qintian, Yu Bing, and the others as the backbone, and Ziyu and the others as backup, this formation was much more powerful than what they had on paper. None of them were burdens, and all of them were important members. This was especially true now that the ice prison mirror's effect was so strong that the black praying mantises, which were brimming with murderous intent, suddenly slowed down. Everyone was like fish in water as they moved around the black praying mantises. Every time they attacked, they would retreat, and every time they attacked, they would leave. They didn't give the black praying mantises any chance to retaliate. Even when the black praying mantis tried to attack, it was blocked by the defense team, unable to hurt them at all. You despicable and shameless human scum. All you know how to do is sneak around, do you dare fight me head-on? The black praying mantis was going crazy from anger. Although the power of each of their attacks was far from being strong. However, its carapace was much weaker than usual after being frozen by the ice prison mirror. Every time it was struck, it would leave behind a few shallow wounds. 1 or 2 would be fine, but ants could bite an elephant to death. Even the slightest injury would be fatal if it accumulated for too long. What's more, the damage caused by the crowd could only be considered small, but it wasn't so small that it was negligible. Idiot. This is called human intelligence. Chen Tian grinned. They were very familiar with this tactic, and almost all the spirit beasts blocking their way were killed this way. It seemed that it was also effective against golden core spirit beasts. Although they dilly 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 d. Dilly 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 d. Everyone, pick up the pace. I have a bad feeling about this, Leng Leng said softly. Using the wandering tactic would inevitably lead to a protracted battle. Based on previous experience, there was only one result, and that was when the opponents suffered enough and escaped. In order to maintain the formation, they did not have the ability to chase after them. Of course, this wasn't a bad outcome for the group. After all, if they really forced the enemy to a dead end, it would definitely struggle at all costs, and they might have to pay the price of death. Other than that, there was another risk. That was, a long delay would bring trouble. Just like last time, they were only facing a complete Foundation Establishment Spirit Beast. They could have easily taken it down, but because of the long delay, they attracted another late-stage Foundation Establishment Spirit Beast. Being surrounded from both front and back, Leng Leng had a bad feeling about this, and now that feeling appeared again. Hearing Leng Leng's words, everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they picked up the pace with all their might. They only wanted to chase this black praying mantis away as soon as possible. In the blink of an eye, the black praying mantis's leg armor had a few wounds, and it was broken by Leng Leng's kick. Although losing a leg didn't affect it as much as a human, it still scared the hell out of it, a bunch of lunatics. In order to break its leg, Leng Leng's group paid the price of 2 people, including Yu Bing, getting injured. This was completely different from the way they fought just now. They were basically exchanging injury for injury, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that they were lunatics. Unfortunately, the black praying mantis was an existence comparable to a golden core spirit beast, and the way they fought would only make it angry. Unless they could seriously injure it, it would be impossible to scare it away like this. However, Leng Leng's group didn't slow down their pace, instead, they worked together to speed up their pace. They didn't know if their premonition was accurate, but as long as there was a 1 in 10,000 possibility, they couldn't ignore it. They had to chase this black praying mantis away as soon as possible, or else if there were other strong spirit beasts surrounding them and attacked them from both sides, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, most of the time, the more impatient one was, the more things would go against one's will. Just like now, Leng Leng's group had increased their pace, but the effect was barely satisfactory. They had paid the price, but they still couldn't make their opponent waver. Instead, they were getting angrier and angrier, and it was getting harder to deal with. We can't go on like this. Leng Leng was anxious. She knew that she had made a huge mistake. She believed that if it was Lin Yi, he wouldn't have sped up his pace and started attacking in such a situation. In the end, she still lacked actual combat experience, she was too green. Leng Leng clenched her teeth. Since Lin Yi had entrusted everyone's safety to her, she had to bring everyone out of here. No matter what kind of danger they were in, she had to shoulder it alone. Chapter 5274. Not only Leng Leng, but Ling Shan and the others also realized the danger, but due to the limitation of their strength, they were far more helpless than Leng Leng. Working together to maintain the formation was the only thing they could do. Just when the situation was in a stalemate, a voice came from behind along with applause. "Oh, looks like Lin Yi taught you guys pretty well, to be able to fight and even suppress a golden core stage spirit beast with this little strength. Not bad, not bad." Lang Lang and the others were shocked and they heard the voice, and then they found a familiar figure on a tree branch not far behind them, Xue Jianfeng. Looking at Xue Jianfeng's ridiculing expression, everyone's heart instantly sank to the bottom. That ominous premonition just now was indeed right. When it rains, it pours. They actually encountered this fellow at this time. If it wasn't for the black praying mantis, Lang Lang and the others might not be afraid of Xue Jianfeng. Although Xue Jianfeng was an early Golden Core stage master, he was almost defeated by Lang Lang in the last Archean trials. Even without Lin Yi here, as long as everyone worked together, they might not lose to Xue Jianfeng. But the problem was that there was still a Golden Core stage black praying mantis. In front of them was the black praying mantis, and behind them was Xue Jianfeng. Most importantly, these two were Golden Core stage existences. This situation was no different from a hopeless situation. With the history between Xue Jianfeng and Lin Yi, they didn't think that this guy would let go of such a great opportunity. Even if they used their toes to think, this guy would definitely hit them when they were down. Lang Lang quickly signaled everyone to stop. It was no longer suitable to use the wandering tactic to deal with the black praying mantis. Compared to the black praying mantis, Xue Jianfeng was a more dangerous threat that needed to be guarded against. At the same time, the black praying mantis also stopped moving. Although it hated Lang Lang and the others, it was not an idiot at this level. It also knew that the human behind it was a bigger threat to it. It could still fight and run when facing Lang Lang and the others, but facing Xue Jianfeng, it might not be able to escape even if it wanted to. Big praying mantis, this is a master. I advise you to run away before you die. Chen Tian rolled his eyes and said. The black praying mantis was already planning to retreat. Hearing his words, he became even more spirited and said angrily, "Hoo, you're just a mere human scum. Stop boasting shamelessly. This is my territory. Do you think I'm scared? Hey, we're not trying to scare you. You can't even beat us as a mantis, how are you going to survive if he's a Golden Core master?" Ziyu and the others said. You want to scare me away with just a few words? Do you think I'm a fool? The black praying mantis didn't believe him. Before it finished speaking, it charged toward Xue Jianfeng with a howl. This wasn't an impulsive move. Instead, it had thought it through. Although Cold and the others were not easy to deal with, they were not a real threat to it. It could escape at any time if the situation was not good, but this new human expert was different. It had to test the other party's strength first. If he was easy to deal with, then it would think of a way to kill him in one fell swoop. If he really wasn't easy to deal with, then it would be best to run. Seeing this, everyone smiled at each other and breathed a sigh of relief. They didn't know what the black praying mantis was planning, but this was the best situation for them. The danger of being pincered from both sides had been resolved with just a few words. This was truly a fluke. However, everyone's hearts only relaxed for a short moment before they suddenly tensed up again in the next moment. They were even more nervous than before. Xue Jianfeng didn't even move his butt when facing the ferocious praying mantis. But when it got close, he casually slashed with his hand, and the black praying mantis didn't even have a chance to resist. They were easily chopped into 8 pieces on the spot. So fucking stinky. Xue Jianfeng's face was very ugly. He had purposely acted like it was nothing more than to show off in front of everyone. In the end, the black praying mantis was easily taken care of, but he didn't expect to be covered in stinky blood. He was green from head to toe, looking like a clown that had just been fished out of a dye vat. Unfortunately, Cold and the others weren't in the mood to laugh at him. They looked at each other as if they had seen a ghost. This guy was just an early phase Golden Core, how did he become so scary all of a sudden? Gold Core Paragon. Lang Lang uttered these words with difficulty. Shui Jianfeng's attack just now was very simple and swift. Ordinary people might not be able to see through his true strength, but Leng Leng was someone who had seen the world in the immemorial martial world. That was clearly the might of a gold core paragon expert. Ling Shan and the others were all stunned by this word. How long had it been? He went from early phase to golden core perfect in an instant. No matter how many pills he took, there wouldn't be such a heaven-defying effect, right? According to the knowledge of the ancient world, no matter how talented one was, it would take at least a few decades to go from early phase to golden core perfect. This was already the limit. It was common for people to be stuck at this stage for hundreds or thousands of years. Shui Jianfeng, on the other hand, only took a few months to break through to the golden core stage. How was this possible? Such a horrifying leveling speed, not to mention Cold and the others, even Lin Yi would be shocked if he knew about it. Of course, he was only shocked at the means of the core. As for Shui Jianfeng himself, he was nothing more than a piece of trash in his eyes. He wouldn't care about him at all. Yo, good eyesight. How is it? What do you think? Shui Jianfeng was still sitting on the tree trunk leisurely. He looked at everyone with a face full of arrogance and mockery, especially Cold. Both of them were genius disciples of the Snow Sword sect. In addition, Cold was a famous beauty. Shui Jianfeng had many thoughts about her. Unfortunately, Cold was unmoved by force or persuasion. Now that she came out to the common world to train, she fell in love with Lin Yi. She even turned the tables on him, almost causing him to fail miserably in the ancient trials. This was unbearable. Now that he had become a golden core perfect master, his greatest joy was to enjoy the expressions of those who went against him. The more shocked Cold was, the happier he felt. Unfortunately, Cold and the others were not very cooperative. The shocked expressions on their faces only lasted for a moment before disappearing. What was left was only a common enemy. Chapter 5275. Sunflower Bible. What does that mean? Shui Jianfeng was startled. He obviously didn't know about this common world joke. To practice this art, you must first castrate yourself. Don't you have these words on the first page of your art? Chen Tian chuckled. The others burst out in laughter. Even Leng Leng couldn't help but smile. She was initially on high alert, but now she wasn't so nervous anymore. Die, you bastard! Shui Jianfeng snapped back to reality and became furious. A mere Foundation Establishment Realm Peak dared to make fun of him, a golden core full-cycle master. How reckless! With his current strength, it would be useless no matter how Leng Leng and the others worked together. Whoever he wanted to die would die. No one would be able to stop him. Shui Jianfeng made his move immediately, his entire body flying above everyone's heads, reaching out to grab Yu Bing and Wu Qintian's heads. He was planning to leave Leng Leng and Ling Shan alive and enjoy them later, but Yu Bing and Wu Qintian, these guys who didn't know what was good for them, shouldn't even think about living. You guys go first. With a loud shout, Leng Leng took the initiative to meet him. Although she almost succeeded in challenging someone of a higher level previously, facing the current Shui Jianfeng with her mere foundation building great circle was no different from an ant trying to shake a tree. However, she had no other choice. Ling Shan and the others didn't waste any time. They ran away without hesitation. Saying that they would live and die together would only be a joke. All they could do was to escape as soon as possible and not be a burden to Leng Leng. You think you can stop me? When Shui Jianfeng saw this, he couldn't help but reveal a mocking smile. Last time, he had been humiliated by Leng Leng. This time, it was a good opportunity for him to get back at her. He wanted to let her experience the difference between them and the taste of despair. Golden Core full cycle against Foundation Establishment full cycle. It was an undeniable battle. Xue Jianfeng didn't even need to use his sword. It would be an insult to himself. Moreover, he only wanted to toy with Lang Lang. He didn't plan to take her life yet. Seeing Lang Lang's whip kick sweeping over, Xue Jianfeng smiled coldly as he raised his hand to block. He knew that he didn't even need to use his full strength. Lang Lang would fall on her own. Pang! Accompanied by the dull sound of a fist and a leg colliding, Xue Jianfeng's body suddenly paused. Following that, a strange expression appeared on his face. Cold was actually not repelled by him. He could not help but be stunned for a moment. How is this possible? With such a huge difference in strength, even if she didn't use her full strength, she should be heavily injured. She couldn't just not take a step back, right? This is... Xue Jianfeng hastily accepted the challenge, but the situation was far beyond his expectations. He, who had the advantage of an entire realm, was actually suppressed by cold. Xue Jianfeng couldn't help but recall the situation in the primordial trials last time. It was the same at that time. As an early-stage gold core expert, he almost failed miserably at Lang Lang's hands. Now that he had become an expert in the golden core perfection realm, he thought that he could easily wipe away his previous humiliation. He didn't expect that he would fall into such a strange situation again. It was already a rare thing to fight an enemy of a higher realm. It was even more difficult to fight an enemy of a higher realm. As for someone like Cold who wanted to fight an enemy of a higher realm, it was something that had never happened before. It was simply a fantasy. What was even more ridiculous was that Xue Jianfeng was actually suppressed and couldn't break free for a while. Instant close-range combat was an extremely troublesome battle tactic, especially when it was coupled with the deceleration effect of Cold's ice prison mirror. Even Xue Jianfeng couldn't easily shake it off. It would be fine if that was all, but the strange state that Cold Lang was displaying right now was truly frightening. Not only was the cold air surrounding her body, even the exposed skin such as her palms and neck had turned into a cold gleam, as if they were formed into ice crystals. Xue Jianfeng couldn't figure out what was going on, but his pride would never allow him to be suppressed by a foundation-building perfection realm expert like Cold. After being forced to take 5 steps back, he suddenly gritted his teeth and stopped his body. He couldn't be bothered to catch his breath and forcefully counterattacked with his palms. Doing so would easily cause him to suffer a backlash, but he couldn't care less as he was enraged. Bang! The two palms collided. This time, Xue Jianfeng had exerted his full strength. However, unexpectedly, Cold Lang didn't retreat. Not only did she not retreat, but her attacks became even fiercer. What the hell? Xue Jianfeng's eyes widened in an instant. He couldn't understand what was going on at all. There was only one thought in his mind: this world was too crazy. However, he was the leader of the younger generation in the ancient martial world after all. Although Cold Lang could barely suppress him, it was mainly because of the element of surprise. At most, she could only take the initiative in the battle. It was almost impossible for her to seriously injure him. After all, there was a gap of a whole realm between them. How could it be so easy to level the gap? After exchanging a few more blows, Xue Jianfeng finally figured out something. He realized that although he had been fighting with Cold Lang head-on every time, the moment when the blows were really exchanged, the force and vital energy that were transmitted to the opponent would always go astray inexplicably. Most of the force would be diverted to the side. In the end, it was estimated that not even 1/10 of the force would be effective on Cold Lang. Xue Jianfeng didn't believe it and tried a few more times. The result was the same every time. Amidst the shock, a thought suddenly flashed in his mind. He blurted out, could it be the legendary ice skin Jade Skin? Ice skin jade skin was not a mere description in the ancient alliance, especially in the snow sword faction. It was a real defensive martial art. It was said that only a few people with extremely special physiques had the opportunity to cultivate it. Once it was cultivated, it could easily disperse most of the attacks. Moreover, it was extremely durable. Even when fighting against an opponent of a higher realm, it would rarely be at a disadvantage. Chapter 5276. You just realized it. A hint of mockery flashed in Lang Lang's eyes. It was normal for others not to realize it. After all, jade skin had only appeared a few times in the archaic Jianghu. However, Xue Jianfeng was a real disciple of the Snow Sword School. He was really slow to recognize the martial arts of his school after such a long time. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The martial arts manual of jade skin was destroyed a long time ago. Where did you get the martial arts manual? Xue Jianfeng still found it hard to believe. It was not unreasonable for him to be so sure. He had tried to practice jade skin in the beginning, and he even spent a lot of money for it. Unfortunately, he found out later that he had no talent in this aspect, so he destroyed half of the martial arts manual in a rage. Thanks to his father, who was the vice leader of the school, he could cover it up without anyone knowing. Otherwise, he would have been severely punished by the school. How could he succeed in practicing without even a martial arts manual? It's none of your business. Lang Lang snorted. Her martial arts manual did not come from the school, but from Lin Yi. In the collection of martial arts manuals sent by Wang Xinyan and others, most of them only had entry-level martial arts manuals and basic martial arts manuals purchased from the black market. However, there were a few martial arts manuals and martial arts manuals that covered almost all the manuals and martial arts manuals, such as the Snow Sword School where Wei Shenjin was from. Since Lang Lang had already mastered the Drawing Ground Prison and the Ice Prison Mirror, which were extremely threatening skills, she would not consider forcefully breaking through to the Golden Core stage in the short term. Therefore, in the last month before the start of the archaic trials, other than consolidating her level, she spent most of her remaining energy on practicing a new skill, which was the jade skin that Lin Yi had chosen for her. Strictly speaking, her shattered ice physique did not completely meet the requirements of jade skin. She could not learn jade skin in such a short time like painted ground and broken ice mirror. But her compatibility with jade skin was still above 80%. So, she had made some progress over the past month, and now it was coming in handy. Good, good, good. So what if you have jade skin? It's nothing more than a little endurance. Apart from speeding up the depletion of your dwindling physical strength and true chi, it simply can't harm a single hair of mine. What's the fart use? Xue Jianfeng said with a cold smile. Although he was trying to comfort himself, what he said was indeed true. Jade skin was just a defensive martial arts skill without any offensive ability. At most, it could only make cold more resistant to attacks, but it could not fundamentally change the status of the two of them. However, Lang Lang never expected to defeat Xue Jianfeng. That wasn't realistic. She only wanted to stall him and buy more time for Ling Shan and the others to escape. And so far, her strategy had succeeded. Almost there. At this moment, Cold's breathing became rather heavy. If she really wanted to hold Xue Jianfeng back, it was not enough to rely on jade skin alone. She also had to engage in close combat. No matter which one it was, it would consume a lot of her Jin Qi. In addition, she had already consumed a lot of her Jin Qi before. Holding on for half an hour was the limit of her endurance. Any longer and she would be exhausted. Lang Lang took a deep breath and forced Xue Jianfeng to retreat once again. She then turned around and fled without hesitation. You still want to escape at this time. Aren't you too naive? Shui Jianfang immediately chased after her with a cold smile. Although Lang Lang's speed was not considered slow, the gap between their strengths was there. Unless she had a skill like Lin Yi's, it was almost impossible to get rid of her opponent. In the blink of an eye, Lang Lang's back was hit by a palm. Although she relied on jade skin to absorb most of the force, she still spat out a mouthful of blood. However, her feet did not stop at all. Instead, she used the force of the palm to escape even faster. Let's see how long you can last. At this moment, Shui Jianfang had completely thrown Ling Shan and the others to the back of his mind. To be precise, he did not care about these people at all. Only Lang Lang in front of him, he had to get rid of her. In less than a year's time, Lang Lang had rushed from the early phase of foundation building to the full circle of foundation building. She even mastered powerful skills like Painted Prison and Ice Prison Mirror. Now that she had mastered Jade Skin, she could actually cross a whole level to fight with him for so long. The potential that Lang Lang displayed was too terrifying. Even Shui Jianfeng, who was proud and arrogant, had to admit that if he continued to let her be, he might be stepped on by Lang Lang one day. He might as well kill her while she was still in the cradle. A cold light flashed, and Shui Jianfeng immediately unsheathed his sword. Lang Lang only felt a chill on her back. Her back was immediately hit by the sword, and a glaring flower of blood spurted out. She's actually not dead. Shui Jianfang looked at Lang Lang, who was still running away, and was stunned. He was not pretending to use his sword. He had used his full strength, but he did not expect that it would only leave a small wound on her back. Jade Skin's defense was indeed amazing. Again. I'd like to see how many times you can take my sword. Shui Jianfang said ferociously. At this point, Shui Jianfang did not hide his intention to kill anymore. It was a pity to kill such a beautiful woman like Lang Lang, but he could always find another one. However, if Lang Lang was allowed to grow, it would be his turn to worry about his life. The two of them ran and chased. In less than a moment, they had passed through dozens of miles of dense forest. At this time, Lang Lang's back was already dripping with blood. There were more than a dozen wounds of different sizes. She was only able to hold on with jade skin. Otherwise, she would have died a long time ago. Even so, Lang Lang was on the verge of collapsing. Not only was she bleeding from more than a dozen wounds, but most importantly, her physical strength and true qi were almost at their limits. Soon. It should be not far ahead. Lang Lang kept brainwashing herself along the way. Only in this way could she barely hold on and not collapse. They had just passed by this place yesterday, but at that time, they sensed that there was an unusually strong aura of a spirit beast, so they did not dare to approach it rashly. In the end, they took a detour carefully. But now, this unknown powerful spirit beast had become her only chance of survival. She had to find a way to alarm this unknown spirit beast and make it target Shui Jianfang. Only in this way could Lang Lang escape this disaster. There was no other way. Shui Jianfang soon noticed something strange. As an expert in Gold Core Paragon, his perception range was naturally much wider than Lang Lang's. He immediately understood Lang Lang's intention with a thought. Without caring about anything else, he leaped up high and a huge white sword light fell from the sky silently. This was the strongest move he had mastered at the moment, 9 Heaven Sword Fall. Chapter 5277. Lang Lang stopped abruptly and sighed softly, "Farewell, Lin Yi." Lin Yi had entrusted Ling Shan and the others to her, and now she had done the best she could. Even if she could not completely ensure everyone's safety, she had a clear conscience and could die in peace. At the last moment when Lang Lang closed her eyes and waited for her death, a silhouette suddenly appeared beside her. Then, a familiar ice-cold aura materialized and soared into the sky, blocking Shui Jianfang's Nine Heavens sword. Although it was less than half a second, this half a second was enough for him to save Leng Leng from danger. Merciless Ice Force. Shui Jianfang's eyelids twitched. This familiar ice-cold aura was actually Merciless Ice Force. The identity of this person was obvious, it was Bing Wuqing. It's you. At this moment, Shui Jianfang was not the only one who was shocked. Even Leng Leng, who had just been saved, was so shocked that she could not speak after seeing the appearance of the person who had come. Why would Bing Wuqing save her for no reason at all? Lin Yi had never told anyone about the fact that Bing Wuqing and the others had been secretly subdued by him. Only two people knew about this, one was himself, and the other was Lin Dongfang. Leng Leng did not know the inside story, and was of course as shocked as Shui Jianfang. Let's go. Bing Wuqing had no intention of explaining the whole story at all, and immediately gestured for Leng Leng to escape first. Although Leng Leng was extremely weak at the moment, with the large amount of elixirs that Lin Yi had given her to heal her injuries, it wouldn't take long for her to recover. As long as she was careful, self-preservation shouldn't be a problem. Thank you. Leng Leng knew that this was not the time to be long-winded. She thanked her and immediately turned to leave. Not only did she have to heal her injuries, but she also had to meet up with Ling Shan and the others before they went far. As for why Bing Wuqing saved her, this question could only be explored later. Seeing Leng Leng escape, Shui Jianfang panicked and wanted to attack again. However, Merciless Ice Force had already enveloped him. His heart skipped a beat, and he did not dare to act rashly. He turned to look at Bing Wuqing with fear. What? You helped them. Shui Jianfang sized Bing Wuqing up again with an unfriendly expression. Logically speaking, Bing Wuqing should be Lin Yi's enemy, and she had even joined the center together with him. What was the meaning of this fellow saving cold? I'm happy, Bing Wuqing said indifferently, her face expressionless. This is a mission given to me by my superiors. How dare you obstruct me? Where did you get the guts to do so? Shui Jianfang snorted coldly. In the past, due to the difference in their abilities, he had to be somewhat respectful when facing Bing Wuqing. However, there was no need for that now. Is that so? That's your mission, and it has nothing to do with me. The order I received was just not to provoke Lin Yi, Bing Wuqing said nonchalantly. You. Shui Jianfang could not help but choke. He was a little lacking in confidence, because it was a strict order passed down from the center's headquarters not to provoke Lin Yi. He had urged the bespectacled professor to deal with the people around Lin Yi, but he had acted on his own accord. It was fine to play tricks in the dark, but he could not bring it up in the open. Otherwise, he would be disobeying orders. Even the bespectacled professor might not have the guts to do so, let alone him. Then let me ask you, you were clearly only at the later stage of the Golden Elixir realm. How did your abilities suddenly become Golden Elixir realm perfected? You were actually hiding your abilities. Shui Jianfang said with a frown. Bing Wuqing had blocked his sword falls from the ninth heaven with only the materialized Merciless Ice Force. Even if it was only for half an instant, it was enough to prove that this fellow's abilities were at least at the same level as his. She was already a Golden Elixir realm perfected expert. One had to know that Merciless Ice Force was merely an aura, and was not strictly an offensive or defensive move. Just the thought of Bing Wuqing being able to achieve such a feat with Merciless Ice Force alone was shocking. Even Shui Jianfang had to admit that although they were at the same realm, if they were to really fight, the other party's chances of winning were obviously higher than his. Same here. Aren't you the same? Bing Wuqing glanced at him, and the corners of her mouth curled into a mocking arc. She said, "Do you think that you can surpass me just because you ditched me and secretly followed Feng to court my favor? You actually know about it." Shui Jianfeng was even more shocked. Previously, the bespectacled doctor had clearly told him that the Central Headquarters focus training program was strictly confidential, and that it would definitely not be revealed to anyone. How did this fellow know about it? Could you really do something like this without anyone knowing? Bing Wuqing glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. Could it be that you've also joined the focus training program? Shui Jianfeng became more and more surprised. After thinking about it carefully, before he took the initiative to court Bing Wuqing, the bespectacled doctor had obviously valued Bing Wuqing more, so it was not impossible for him to join the focus training program. Bing Wuqing smiled faintly. She neither admitted nor denied it, and in Shui Jianfeng's eyes, she became more and more unfathomable. Of course, there was no need for him to reveal his relationship with Lin Yi. He could let this fellow be suspicious on his own. As expected, the more Shui Jianfeng thought about it, the more he realized that Bing Wuqing's leap from the Gold Core later stage to the Gold Core consummation was also the last month before he joined the center's focus training program. Although it was not as exaggerated as his, to his knowledge, advancing 2 levels in a short month was something that only the center could do. As for why Bing Wuqing did not advance 6 levels in a row like him, but stopped at the Gold Core consummation, the reason was not difficult to find. Because when he first joined the focus training program, he had been told that the current technology of the center in the secular world could at most quickly elevate them to the Gold Core consummation, and that was already the limit. As for the nascent soul stage, that technology was still in the experimental stage, and it was far from being mature enough to be officially implemented. With Bing Wuqing's interference, it was no longer realistic for Shui Jianfeng to chase after Cold and the others. Putting aside the question of whether he could find these people again in a short period of time, even if he did find them, it would be useless. Although Bing Wuqing did not speak much, her actions just now had made her attitude clear. If Shui Jianfeng dared to touch Cold and the others, she would attack him. Facing Bing Wuqing, with the power she had accumulated over the years, and the unfathomable skills she had displayed just now, Shui Jianfeng really did not have much confidence to fight her head-on. There would be no benefits if he won, and if he lost, he would be snubbed. Wouldn't that be a waste of effort? Why are you protecting Cold like this? Shui Jianfeng asked in a low voice. I told you just now, I'm happy. Bing Wuqing was still expressionless, and no one could tell what she was thinking. Chapter 5278. Bing Wuqing stopped talking and just stared at him. To ensure that Cold and the others could escape safely, she had to keep an eye on Shui Jianfeng for at least an hour. Otherwise, with their meager strength, Shui Jianfeng would catch up to them in the blink of an eye. While the two of them were confronting each other, their eyelids suddenly twitched. A powerful and ferocious aura of a spirit beast was rapidly approaching them from afar, and in the blink of an eye, it was right in front of them. It was a lizard, but not an ordinary one. It was more than 10 meters long from head to tail, and its entire body was covered in silver-gray scales. Its huge mouth was filled with ferocious sharp teeth, and from time to time, a lump of saliva would flow out of it. A pungent stench assailed their nostrils, and the saliva actually corroded a deep pit into the ground when it fell. It was truly frightening, and their scalps tingled. The primordial giant lizard. Shui Jianfeng and Bing Wuqing blurted out almost at the same time. This image was undoubtedly one of the 10 most ferocious and terrifying spirit beasts in the primordial underworld. They didn't expect it to exist in this place. The primordial giant lizard didn't stop, nor did it have the slightest intention to talk nonsense with the two of them. It roared and charged straight at Bing Wuqing, who was the closest to it. However, this was not strange. The primordial monitor lizards were famous for being powerful, and they were also famous for being brainless. Other than having an extremely strong sense of territory, this fellow's mind was basically a mass of chaos. It did not have any clear consciousness, and only had the most basic beastly instincts left. At its level, other spirit beasts would have developed spiritual intelligence long ago, and their intelligence wouldn't be much lower than that of humans. Unfortunately, the primordial giant lizard was recognized as one of the most retarded spirit beasts. No matter how powerful it was still a wild beast that only knew how to kill. Bing Wuching frowned slightly at the sight, and quickly retreated. Unexpectedly, although this primordial giant lizard looked very cumbersome, its movements weren't clumsy at all. Instead, it was extremely agile, and its speed was far above that of ordinary human experts. Even Bing Wuching was caught up in the blink of an eye. Bing Wuching was startled by the other party's foul-smelling saliva as it bit at her. She immediately unleashed her ruthless ice force, which she was best at. The speed of the primordial giant lizard instantly decreased. Just like the black praying mantis that Lang Lang and the others had encountered earlier, it was the most irresistible type of ice attack, which was extremely effective. Bing Wuching seized the opportunity to escape. This primordial giant iguana was obviously a being comparable to a golden core perfected expert. If she was bitten by it, she would either die or be severely injured. That mouthful of saliva was especially horrifying, and if she came into contact with even the slightest bit of it, she would immediately be corroded into a large hole. Even if her vitality was strong enough to survive, she would still be plagued with illnesses in the future, and she would never be able to recover in this lifetime. However, before she could widen the distance between them to more than 30 feet, the primordial giant lizard's scarlet tongue suddenly shot out like a sharp arrow, targeting Bing Wuching. Its speed was more than 10 times faster than her body movement technique, and Bing Wuching couldn't escape at all. Just as she was about to suffer, she quickly formed a seal with her hands, and a thick ice wall suddenly appeared behind her. Although the primordial giant lizard's scarlet tongue came at her fiercely and broke through the ice wall almost instantly, the ice wall kept getting thicker as it was broken. Eventually, she managed to block the attack by a hair's breadth. Phew! This lizard! Bing Wuching heaved a sigh of relief with lingering fear. On the other side, Xue Jianfeng couldn't hide the regret on his face. How good would it have been if Bing Wuching had been killed by the primordial giant lizard just now? Not only would they have one less troublemaker, they would also have one less competitor. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. What a pity. Bing Wuching could guess his intentions even with her toes. Therefore, after she withstood the primordial giant lizard's first wave of attack, she didn't plan to fight it head-on. After all, even if she could win that way, Xue Jianfeng would only benefit from it. Therefore, she chose to retreat. Under such circumstances, it was best to preserve her strength. What the fuck? You're too cunning. Xue Jianfeng was just about to gloat when he saw Bing Wuching fleeing in his direction, with the primordial giant lizard chasing after her relentlessly. In the blink of an eye, the girl and the lizard were right in front of him. Xue Jianfeng's reaction was a beat too slow, and he was left behind by Bing Wuching in an instant. The primordial giant lizard, which was right in front of him, bit at him again. Xue Jianfeng hurriedly used his sword to block it, only to find that the lizard didn't just have thick skin and thick flesh, but more importantly, its silver-gray scales were too hard. Not only did his full-force strike fail to break through the scales, but it also caused his right hand to go numb from the impact, and he almost dropped his sword. At the same time, the primordial monitor lizard that had missed its bite used the same trick again, and its scarlet tongue lashed out once more. Even though it was extremely soft and didn't possess any offensive power, it was covered in the most terrifying saliva, and as long as it came into contact with even a little bit of it, one would immediately be done for. At this moment, Xue Jianfeng's body was a little stiff from the recoil. If he hadn't seen this move just now, he would definitely be at a great disadvantage if he was caught off guard. Fortunately, he was prepared. The moment the primordial giant lizard's scarlet tongue lashed out, he immediately descended from the sky and used the 9 heavens sword fall, cutting off the tongue with his sword. A several-foot-long severed tongue bounced around on the ground. The primordial giant lizard, which had suffered a great loss, immediately let out an ear-piercing roar. The veins all over its body twitched violently, and its already ferocious eyes turned bloodshot. It was clearly going berserk. Feeling the violent aura emanating from the primordial giant lizard, Xue Jianfeng's heart skipped a beat. He had poked a hornet's nest. It clearly only had the spiritual intelligence of a wild beast, but it could be ranked as one of the 10 most terrifying spiritual beasts in the ancient martial world. There was no doubt about the primordial giant lizard's strength. It was almost invincible among those of the same level. If its original battle power was 1, then after going berserk, its battle power was at least 5, or even more. Facing such an existence, with Xue Jianfeng's current strength, even if he could win, he would definitely lose his life. Moreover, Bing Wuqing was watching him covetously from the side. Xue Jianfeng had already planned to attack Bing Wuqing earlier, so it was hard to say if Bing Wuqing wasn't planning to do the same now. Once the primordial giant lizard went berserk, Xue Jianfeng turned and ran without hesitation. This time, he no longer cared about hiding. It was clearly a hot day, but with every step he took, he would leave a clear snow print on the ground, which then quickly melted. Every time a snow print melted, the speed of his movement technique would increase by a notch. By the time he crossed 10 snow prints, his movement technique speed had increased by at least 2 times. Chapter 52-79. Although Xue Jianfeng was also the leader of the younger generation in the small Jianghu of the immemorial era, a lot of points came from his father, the deputy head of the Snow Sword School. If it was just based on Xue Jianfeng's talent alone, he was at most more outstanding. He couldn't be compared to a true genius like Ling Tianyu. Even Lang Lang could leave him far behind. As the leader of the younger generation, Bing Wuqing was an absolute genius. Naturally, she would look down on a weak leader like Xue Jianfeng. However, she did not expect this guy to have some skills. Traceless snow steps was one of the top movement techniques of the Snow Sword faction. The number of people in the entire Snow Sword faction who could master this movement technique could be counted on one hand. It was not easy. Xue Jianfeng was running towards Bing Wuqing. Now that the primordial giant lizard had gone berserk, its speed could not be measured with common sense. Even if he had traceless snow steps, he might not be able to get rid of it. He might as well do what Bing Wuqing did just now and put the blame on his opponent. When 2 people were being chased by a tiger, they did not necessarily have to outrun the tiger in order to escape. They just had to outrun the other person. This was common sense that everyone knew. Both of them were Golden Core Paragon experts, and they both came from the Snow Sword faction. In this aspect, it was obvious that Xue Jianfeng, who had the traceless snow steps as a base, was at an advantage. Unless Bing Wuqing also knew traceless snow steps. Unfortunately, Bing Wuqing had not put much effort into this aspect. After all, even with her talent, it was not easy to master traceless snow steps. Moreover, this movement technique was not very compatible with him. In layman's terms, it did not match his temperament. If she were to forcefully cultivate it, it would only result in half the effort. A rational and realistic person like Bing Wuqing would certainly not do such a thing. However, Bing Wuqing was a little regretful now. If she had known, she would have spent twice the time to practice it. That way, at least she would not have fallen into such an awkward situation. In a short period of time, he had been left behind by traceless snow steps, and the brainless and frenzied primordial giant lizard had automatically shifted its hatred to him, who was closest to it. Hee, I'll go first. You have fun with it. Shui Jianfeng laughed proudly and left. It wasn't that he didn't want to stay and see Bing Wuqing's embarrassed look, but he was well aware of how terrifying Bing Wuqing was. He knew very well that if he were to get carried away and stay, Bing Wuqing would definitely have 100 ways to drag him back into the battle. So, for safety's sake, it was better to leave first. Humph. Can you escape? Bing Wuqing had no choice but to bite the bullet and attack the primordial giant lizard. The water lily doppelganger's expression was quite sincere when it said this, and there was no sign of it lying. Plants also have intelligence. Fei Yangxing came over and asked curiously. Of course, as long as the plants have a bit of climate, they will have intelligence. As for those elixirs in your eyes, they're even more outstanding. Otherwise, how could they gather so much spiritual qi of heaven and earth to nourish them? The water lily doppelganger asked in return. Ah. Upon hearing the word elixirs, Fei Yangxing's face immediately turned gloomy. The 2 bags of elixirs that he had painstakingly collected in the underground had already been thrown away when he encountered the Kappa. Now that he had come out of the treasure mountain empty-handed, it really pained him to think about it. The main reason was that Lin Yi was worried about the safety of Cold and the others, so he didn't bother to accompany him back to the treasure mountain. Moreover, he didn't dare to go back alone, so he could only silently bleed in his heart. What are you going to do? Duan Miu looked at Lin Yi and asked. Lin Yi pondered for a moment. He was sure that it was Cold who was holding Shui Jianfeng back. He thought for a moment and said, other than that girl, are the others in any danger? Not really. It seems that if there are no accidents, we should be able to reach the river of consciousness smoothly. The water lily doppelganger smiled mysteriously. If that's the case, then bring me to the primordial giant lizard's territory now. Lin Yi decided immediately. Since Ling Shan and the others were not in danger, there was nothing to worry about. The most important thing now was to hurry and save Cold. Chapter 5280. Is it very strong? Lin Yi was slightly taken aback. He had never heard of an ancient monitor lizard, but since even an existence like the brain-eating bug did not dare to step into its territory, there was no doubt about its strength. It is indeed very strong. The ancient monitor lizard is recognized as one of the 10 most terrifying spirit beasts in the Archaic Alliance. Legend has it that unless it is a nascent soul-old monster, all human cultivators must avoid it. Duanmu Yu confirmed. It's fine if it's just powerful, but in this place, apart from that sir, the brain-eating bug and I are the most powerful. It's at most on par with us. There's another more important reason why no one is willing to provoke it. It's brainless, the water lily doppelganger snickered. No brains. Lin Yi glanced at it. The most terrifying thing about the ancient monitor lizard is its saliva. It is almost the most terrifying and evil saliva in the world. Those with a weak physique will die if they touch it. Even if their physique is strong enough, they can only linger on and become a tuberculosis ghost, never to be a normal person again. Perhaps it is affected by its own saliva. The ancient monitor lizard is completely a brainless lunatic. There is no way to communicate with it. Otherwise, it might be on an equal footing with me and the brain-eating bug, the water lily doppelganger said casually. So strange. All the more reason for me to go and see. Lin Yi made up his mind and then looked at Duanmu Yu and said, since Miss Duanmu is going to the river of divine knowledge, then let's say goodbye. The ancient monitor lizard was so terrifying. Lin Yi had to take the risk for Cold. Otherwise, even he would not be willing to deal with such a thing. Duanmu Yu was just a chance acquaintance, so naturally, she would not take the risk. He took the initiative to say this to give the other party a way out, so as to avoid embarrassment. Unexpectedly, Duanmu Yu said, we can go to the River of Divine Knowledge anytime. It is rare to have the opportunity to see the glory of the ancient monitor lizard. I want to go with you. Brother Lin, you don't mind, right? Lin Yi took a deep look at her. He knew that Duanmu wanted to take this opportunity to return the favor. After all, he had done her a great favor. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "In that case, let's go together." Lin Yi was just about to have his water lily clone lead the way to the primordial monitor lizard's territory when Fei Yongxing suddenly put on a sheepish smile. Senior, I'll only be a burden to you if I go with you. Why don't I not go? As you wish. Lin Yi waved his hand. Duanmu might still be able to help, but with Fei Yongyang's meager strength, facing an existence like the primordial giant lizard, he would only be sending himself to his death. Not only would he not be able to help, he would even be a hindrance to Lin Yi. Forcing him to follow them was no different from sending him to his death, so it was better for him to stay. Yes, yes. Thank you for your understanding, Senior. Have a safe journey. Fei Yongyang was overjoyed. He was afraid that Lin Yi would make him follow them as cannon fodder. He didn't expect Lin Yi to be so easygoing. Although it was extremely dangerous for him to move alone in the dense forest with his meager strength, it was better than sending himself to his death in the primordial giant lizard's territory. As long as he was careful and didn't think too much about treasures, he should be able to keep his life. Lin Yi couldn't be bothered to argue with such a small character. He immediately let his water lily clone lead the way and set off with Duanmu to the primordial giant lizard's territory. Meanwhile, Fei Yongyang took the map given by Axayanijia and studied it for a long time, then walked in the direction of the River of Divine Knowledge. Moving alone, Fei Yongyang was careful with every step he took. If there was even the slightest movement, he would immediately find a place to hide. Although this was a little too cautious, the advantage was that he wouldn't die easily. After all, safety came first. 2 hours later, Fei Yongyang suddenly stopped in his tracks. He felt that his surroundings were a little too quiet. He didn't care whether there was any danger or not. He quickly hid behind the trunk of a nearby tree. His intuition was right. In a short while, he sensed a powerful aura approaching from afar. However, it wasn't a spirit beast, but Xue Jianfeng. At this time, Xue Jianfeng had already shaken off Bing Wuqing and the primordial giant lizard. When he passed by this area, he suddenly appeared in front of Fei Yongyang. With Fei Yongyang's meager strength, it was impossible for him to hide from Xue Jianfeng's divine knowledge. Xue. Senior brother Xue. Oh no, Master's uncle Xue. Fei Yongyang was so shocked that he stuttered. Why are you here? Xue Jianfeng looked him up and down. Is it strange that I'm here? Fei Yongyang couldn't help but be stunned. Everyone was heading to the River of Divine Knowledge, and he was walking in this direction. Wasn't this normal? Of course it's strange. If I'm not mistaken, you should have been eaten by that plant spirit beast. Tell me, how did you escape? Xue Jianfeng's eyes narrowed into slits. You. How did you know? Fei Yongyang was shocked. He had never seen Xue Jianfeng before. Xue Jianfeng coldly snorted and said, Nonsense. The path you chose must have passed through that plant spirit beast's territory. Even I had to expend a tremendous amount of effort to escape. With your insignificant strength, how could you have made it this far alive? Have you fought with the water lily protector before? It was only then that Fei Yongxing realized that Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng had set off earlier than him. Judging from Xue Jianfeng's words, he must have chosen the same path as him and Duanmu, and must have experienced some extremely dangerous situations, which was why he had such a question. Water lily protector. Shui Jianfeng frowned and muttered to himself, so that thing's true form is a water lily. How could it be a water lily that can control so many powerful plants to surround me at the same time? So you haven't seen its true form. Fei Yangyang was stunned again. He had thought that Shui Jianfeng had fought directly with the water lily protector like Lin Yi. He didn't expect that he had only fought indirectly with the plants controlled by the water lily protector. He couldn't help but feel a bit of contempt in his heart. From the looks of it, Shui Jianfeng had at most fought with something similar to the twin piranha flower, while Lin Yi had actually taken down the water lily protector's true form. The difference between the two was obvious. Admittedly, Shui Jianfeng was a high and mighty golden core expert. To Fei Yangyang, he was a high and mighty existence that he could only look up to. However, a heaven-defying expert like Lin Yi could simply ignore the level suppression. The fact that he could take down the water lily protector proved everything. Therefore, there was no doubt that Lin Yi was stronger than Shui Jianfeng. Chapter 5281. You've seen it. Then how did you survive? Shui Jianfeng looked at him suspiciously. Of course I've seen it, but I was lucky enough to meet Senior Lin Yi, and he saved me. Fei Yangxing's tone involuntarily revealed a bit of pride, and even a bit of bragging. After all, apart from Lang Lang and the others, there were not many people who could be saved by Lin Yi, which was also a rare honor. Lin. Would he take the initiative to save you? Shui Jianfeng glanced at him with a bit of disbelief in his eyes. He knew that Fei Yangxing had some relationship with Lin Yi, but in his opinion, it was purely Lin Yi who forced Fei Yangxing to do hard labor for him. He did not believe that Fei Yangxing was one of Lin Yi's people, or else he would have punished this guy long ago. Of course. Fei Yangxing said shamelessly. Although it was true that Lin Yi saved him, it was purely a coincidence. If Lin Yi knew that he was trapped by the Bingdi piranha flower from the beginning, he might not have wasted time for him at all. This was simply Fei Yangxing's wishful thinking. Shui Jianfeng was dubious. He did not believe Fei Yangxing's words, but it was a fact that this guy was safe and sound. He said with a faint smile, "So you have a good relationship with Lin Yi?" About the same. Fei Yangxing was a little guilty at this time. It was not because he was guilty of making friends with Lin Yi, but because he remembered that Shui Jianfeng and Lin Yi were not on good terms. What if Lin Yi killed him to vent his anger? He would not be able to escape with his little strength. In that case, follow me first. Maybe Lin Yi will come to you in a while. Shui Jianfeng thought for a while and said. Ah. Follow you. Fei Yangxing was shocked. If it was before, he would definitely want to hug Shui Jianfeng's leg in this kind of place. But now, he had automatically attached the label of Lin Yi to make himself look better. Would it be good to follow Shui Jianfeng at this time? You're not willing. Shui Jianfeng squinted at him. It's not that I'm unwilling, but what does it have to do with you whether Senior Lin Yi comes to find me or not? Fei Yangxing muttered suspiciously. He didn't know what the other party was planning, but he couldn't help but feel uneasy. Cut the crap. Are you leaving or not? Shui Jianfeng glared. Let's go. I'll go with you. Fei Yangxing was taken aback. He didn't dare to argue with Shui Jianfeng face to face. Moreover, it wasn't like there were no benefits for him to follow Shui Jianfeng. At the very least, he wouldn't fall into the mouths of other spirit beasts, and his safety would be guaranteed. However, in private, Fei Yangxing couldn't help but complain in his heart. This guy must have some ulterior motives for bringing him along. When Senior Lin Yi came later, he would kill him. So what if he was a gold core expert? Even Lang Lang almost couldn't defeat him last time, let alone Senior Lin Yi. Senior Lin Yi could even subdue the water lotus protector. You, Shui Jianfeng, are nothing. After taking 2 steps, Fei Yongxing suddenly asked, Where are we going? Do you still need to ask? Of course, we're going to the River of Divine Knowledge. Shui Jianfeng said and took the lead to walk forward. With his strength, he naturally didn't need to be as careful as Fei Yongxing. Unless it was an existence like the ancient giant lizard, ordinary spirit beasts wouldn't even have time to hide from him. If they didn't have eyes, the black praying mantis would be a good example. Fei Yongxing was a little worried that Shui Jianfeng would bring him to some dangerous place, but when he heard it was the River of Divine Knowledge, he was immediately relieved. The two of them walked toward the River of Divine Knowledge one after the other. They walked peacefully for 4 to 6 hours. Suddenly, Shui Jianfeng, who was walking in front, was stunned. Then, his expression changed drastically. What the hell? Why did they chase us here? Who? Fei Yongxing asked cautiously. He couldn't help but feel happy in his heart. He thought Shui Jianfeng was talking about Lin Yi and Duan Miyu. Hee, good luck to you. Shui Jianfeng laughed coldly. In a flash, he was about to shake off Fei Yongxing and leave alone. Snow prints appeared under his feet. He had used the traceless snow steps. Before Fei Yongxing could figure out what was going on, he heard a loud rumbling sound coming from afar. In a moment, it was right in front of him. When he saw clearly who was causing this huge commotion, he was instantly scared out of his wits. With a pale face, he stammered, "Th. Primordial giant lizard." It wasn't just the primordial giant lizard. Bing Wuqing had also appeared. Compared to before, Bing Wuqing was obviously in a much more difficult situation. The primordial giant lizard had more than 10 wounds, both shallow and deep. It was in an even more violent state than before. It couldn't be helped. The primordial giant lizard was too fast. Bing Wuqing couldn't shake it off even with her merciless ice force. Every time, she could only stall it for a while before escaping on her own. Then, the primordial giant lizard would chase after her relentlessly. Bing Wuqing would try to stall it for a while. This cycle repeated all the way until they were here. Logically speaking, every spiritual beast had their own territory. Apart from a few special reasons, these spiritual beasts rarely left their territories. That was because doing so would be equivalent to openly declaring war against other spiritual beasts. Bing Wuqing thought that she would be fine as long as she escaped from the primordial giant lizard's territory. However, it turned out that she had been overthinking. This primordial giant lizard didn't care about these miscellaneous things at all. It was just stubbornly chasing after her. The other spiritual beasts didn't even dare to stop it when they saw it. They weren't stupid. If they encountered such a brainless and ferocious beast, they wouldn't even have the time to escape. Who would dare to come forward and seek death? Shui Jianfeng escaped first. When Fei Yongxing saw this, he was so frightened that his legs turned to jelly. He fell to the ground on the spot. He clenched his teeth for a long time before he staggered to his feet and retreated. It was fortunate that the primordial giant lizard's attention had been on Bing Wuqing. Otherwise, with his jelly legs, he would have died a dozen times over if he had been caught in the crossfire. It's fortunate that I don't have much of a presence. Otherwise, my life would have been forfeit today. Fei Yongxing rejoiced as he retreated. However, he didn't have time to rejoice for long. Suddenly, he felt a sharp pain on his back, as if he had been cut by a knife. He quickly turned to look, only to find that ice threads had formed out of thin air behind him. They were as dense as a spider's web, thin, transparent, and unusually sharp. Chapter 5282. Fei Yongxing hurriedly took out a short knife. This was a treasure he had obtained by chance during a trial in his early years. It was indestructible and could cut through iron like mud. However, when his short knife sliced through the ice threads, he did not encounter any resistance at all. What made Fei Yongxing dumbfounded was that after the short knife sliced through, the ice threads did not break. They were still hanging in the air, undamaged. Fei Yongxing was dumbfounded for a moment before he suddenly realized that these ice threads were not solid ice threads at all. They were formed by the condensation of divine senses. No wonder his skin and flesh did not break when he touched them, and he did not bleed. Fei Yongxing was not the only one who was obstructed by the ice threads. Even Xue Jianfeng, who had left first, was forced to retreat. He looked at Bing Wuqing with an ugly expression and asked, "What is the meaning of this?" "Nothing, I just intend to finish it off here. Don't you want to join in the fun?" Bing Wuqing said expressionlessly. Without a doubt, these ice threads formed by the divine senses were her handiwork. "Do you think you could trap me with this little trick?" Xue Jianfeng snorted coldly. "Whether you could trap me or not, you've already tried it, haven't you?" Bing Wuqing gave a rare grin as she dodged the primordial giant lizard's attack. Xue Jianfeng's expression immediately turned even uglier. Indeed, as Bing Wuqing had said, he had already tried it just now. If he could get rid of those divine sense ice threads, he wouldn't have come back at all. The key was that these divine sense ice threads had already surrounded the entire place without leaving any blind spots. This place had already become an out-and-out cage. It was obvious that Bing Wuqing did not want to deal with the primordial giant lizard alone. Unless the two of them worked together to finish off this brainless beast, Xue Jianfeng would not be able to leave this place. "Is this your new move?" Xue Jianfeng asked in a low voice. "Of course not," Bing Wuqing replied calmly. Bing Wuqing replied impassively. She had learned this move a long time ago. It was just that she had been limited by her abilities in the past, and the most she had been able to do was to create some scattered strands. She had been unable to weave a densely packed cage of ice silk like she was doing now. "What is it?" Xue Jianfeng asked again. "Merciless ice threads." Bing Wuqing didn't hide anything. This was an ultimate move that was derived from the merciless ice force. All along, she had focused her cultivation on the merciless ice force, and all the moves she had cultivated were based on it. It was the same for the merciless ice threads. Xue Jianfeng did not say another word. Although his abilities were no longer below Bing Wuqing's on the surface, he had progressed too quickly after all, and one of the unavoidable drawbacks was his lack of foundation. He was still unable to master many of the powers at the level of Golden Core perfected, especially when it came to divine sense, which was a huge weakness. Therefore, these merciless ice threads formed from divine sense could be said to be helpless. Although Wuqing had made her abilities quickly, she was still in the early stage of the merciless golden spirit. And Bing Wuqing was also. Bing Wuqing was had much better. At this moment, the primordial giant lizard, Bing Wuqing, Xue Jianfeng, and Fei Yongxing were all trapped in the cage of ice threads. The palm-sized space had become an open-air arena. Either the primordial giant lizard would die, or all three of them would die together. There was no other outcome. Strictly speaking, the cage of ice threads could trap Xue Jianfeng and Fei Yongxing, but not Bing Wuqing herself. However, it would take some effort for him to pass through the merciless ice threads. Obviously, Xue Jianfeng would not give him the chance to escape. Although the primordial giant lizard was frightening, if Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng could work together sincerely, it would not be too much trouble for them. Unfortunately, the two of them had their own ulterior motives. It was already noble of them not to cause trouble for each other. From the beginning to the end, they had only been doing one thing, and that was to find a way to transfer the primordial giant lizard's hatred to each other. However, what was surprising was that Fei Yongxing managed to survive in such an environment. It was probably because his abilities were too weak. Even if he tried hard to transfer the primordial giant lizard's hatred to him, it would not last for more than a few seconds. Therefore, Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng subconsciously treated him as if he was invisible, and he managed to escape. After half an hour, the battle had completely entered a white-hot stage. Because of the mutual shirking, Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng were completely at a disadvantage against the primordial giant lizard. Both of them were covered in dirt, while the primordial giant lizard was becoming more and more ferocious. If this continued, the two of them might end up as the primordial giant lizard's food. Brothers, stop fooling around. Can't you deal with this lizard first before you fight amongst yourselves? Otherwise, we're all going to die. Fei Yongxing shouted anxiously at the side. If Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng were defeated, he would not survive either. Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng looked at each other. They knew that they could not go on like this. It would be a joke if they died here together. Bing Wuqing took the lead and said, "You hold it back, I'll be the main attacker." "All right." Xue Jianfeng agreed immediately. He had a high-level movement technique like traceless snow steps, so it was not difficult for him to hold the primordial giant lizard back for a short period of time. Furthermore, it did not take much effort for him to do so. On the other hand, Bing Wuqing, who was the main attacker, was more physically draining, so he had the upper hand. The two of them worked together, and the results were immediate. Once Xue Jianfeng had completely attracted the primordial giant lizard's attention, Bing Wuqing gathered her strength for a moment and suddenly struck. She used her palm as a blade, and cold air surged from it, quickly condensing into an extremely thin dark blue ice blade. She aimed it at the primordial giant lizard and slashed it down. Merciless slash. The primordial giant lizard's reaction was not slow, and it quickly dodged when it sensed the danger. Unfortunately, its huge body became an absolute burden at this moment. No matter how fast it was, it could not completely evade the attack, and the dark blue ice blade hit its tail squarely. Previously, Xue Jianfeng's full-powered slash had not been able to break through the defense of its silver-gray scales. However, this time, it was Bing Wuqing's merciless slash that severed its entire tail. Blood splattered everywhere, and the lizard howled in pain. "It's done." Fei Yongxing was overjoyed at the sight, but he was immediately dumbfounded. Not only did the primordial giant lizard not collapse after its tail was severed, it became even more berserk than before, going on a rampage even more thoroughly. Fuck. It's not dead even after that. Xue Jianfeng was caught off guard, and he was sent flying by a claw. Fortunately, the lizard's saliva did not touch him, or he would have been dead. Chapter 5283. Faced with such a ferocious beast that did not conform to common sense, everyone was at a loss. If Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfeng had joined forces, they might have had a chance of winning, but the problem was that it was already rare for them to work together. Xue Jianfeng had suffered a great loss this time, and it was impossible for him to restrain the even more violent primordial giant lizard. The situation took a turn for the worse, and everyone was in a precarious situation. If this continued, they would all be wiped out and buried in the primordial giant lizard's bloody mouth. At this moment, three figures appeared in front of everyone. Fei Yongxing was overjoyed to see them. They were none other than Lin Yi, Duanmuyu, and the water lily clone who was in charge of leading the way. Because the water lily clone couldn't communicate with the plants that had been contaminated by the primordial monitor lizard's saliva, the only way for them to find the primordial monitor lizard's whereabouts was to use the elimination method to calculate the primordial monitor lizard's territory and then try their luck there. If they had to rely on this stupid method, it would have taken them at least a day to find the primordial giant lizard. Fortunately, Bing Wuqing had lured the primordial giant lizard out, and they had calculated its location based on the plants that they had lost contact with. Lin Yi glanced around and frowned. He had thought that the primordial giant lizard was chasing after cold, but there was no cold here at all. Instead, he saw Bing Wuqing and the other two. "Senior, save us!" Fei Yongxing hurriedly shouted. Ever since he had subdued the water lily protector, Lin Yi was almost invincible in his eyes. In his opinion, as long as Lin Yi attacked, the primordial giant lizard would not be a problem. He's just a foundation building great completion, what's the use? Xue Jianfang was full of disdain. Even he and Bing Wuqing, two gold core great completion cultivators, had been tormented by the primordial giant lizard. What use would Lin Yi be? Lin Yi did not comment. If the primordial giant lizard had only targeted Xue Jianfang, he would not have given it a second glance. But Bing Wuqing was here. She was his people, and he could not ignore her. "You want to save them?" Duanmu Yu was a little hesitant. She did not know about the relationship between Bing Wuqing and Lin Yi. She only knew that both Xue Jianfang and Bing Wuqing had a grudge against Lin Yi. There was no need for him to risk his life to save them. After all, the primordial giant lizard was no joke. "It's nothing. It's nothing." As Lin Yi spoke, his figure flashed as he charged forward. "Be careful of the ice threads." Bing Wuqing hurriedly reminded him, but before she could finish, Lin Yi had already disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared in the next instant, he was already inside the ice cage, riding on the head of the berserk primordial giant lizard. This scene caused everyone's eyelids to twitch. That was a primordial monitor lizard. Just a little bit of its saliva and it would be finished. Wasn't Lin Yi a little too daring? "You're courting death. You're still trying to act tough at a time like this." Xue Jianfang snorted disdainfully. Even a golden core perfected expert like him would not dare to be so arrogant. It was obvious that Lin Yi was trying to act tough in front of Duanmu Yu. Otherwise, why would he be riding on the head of the primordial giant lizard for no reason? However, Lin Yi ignored him. He grabbed the primordial giant lizard's head with one hand. Everyone thought that he was going to use some powerful martial arts technique, but unexpectedly, his entire hand sank into the head without any resistance. The scene was rather strange. After a while, the furious primordial giant lizard suddenly quietened down. Lin Yi slowly withdrew his hand, and when it was completely withdrawn, everyone realized that there was a ring of something gray on his hand. "What is that?" Fei Yongxing could not help but ask. "Primordial spirit." Bing Wuqing and Xue Jianfang gasped at the same time. Lin Yi had actually grabbed the primordial giant lizard's primordial spirit out, and the whole process was so easy. It was simply unimaginable. "It's done." Lin Yi casually tossed the ball of primordial spirit in his hand into the space in the jade pendant, and then clapped his hands as if nothing had happened. It gave the impression that he had not dealt with a ferocious beast like the primordial giant lizard, but rather that he had casually picked up a piece of trash. That was all. Everyone looked at each other, and the whole place was dead silent. Apart from the sound of gulping, no one could say a word for a long while. Looking at the primordial giant lizard lying motionless on the ground, Xue Jianfang swallowed hard. He looked at Lin Yi in shock and stammered, "How? How did you do it?" Lin Yi glanced at him. He said calmly, "It's just a brainless spirit beast." "Is it that difficult?" "It's very difficult," Bing Wuqing said seriously. Xue Jianfang and Duanmu Yu had the same expression. It was true that the primordial giant lizard was an extremely brainless spirit beast. While its individual strength was incomparably strong, its primordial spirit was in stark contrast to its incomparably weak primordial spirit. It was no exaggeration to say that the primordial giant lizard, which was superior to most golden elixir perfected experts, had a primordial spirit that could not even compare to an ordinary person's. It might even be weaker than a 3-year-old child's. Even so, a primordial spirit was not something that could be pulled out easily. Unless the primordial spirit left its body on its own accord, no matter how weak the primordial spirit was, as long as it hid in its body, it would still be impregnable. At least to everyone's knowledge, there had never been such a case. To give a simple example, golden elixir perfected experts like Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng could easily kill a bunch of ordinary people with a flick of their fingers. However, it was impossible for them to pull out an ordinary person's primordial spirit out of thin air. Even if it was a nascent soul-old monster, it would be hard to say. The most difficult part was how to completely cut off the connection between the primordial spirit and the body. This connection was inextricably linked and inseparable. It was just like when a person was on Earth, they would inevitably be firmly bound by gravity at all times. Wanting to completely separate a primordial spirit from its body was equivalent to throwing a person directly into space from the surface of the Earth. Only then could one truly break free from gravity. One had to know that Lin Yi himself was only a primordial spirit. He did not have a booster like a rocket. No matter how strong he was, it was impossible for him to throw a person into space with his bare hands, right? However, the reality was right there. No one knew how Lin Yi had done it, but he had indeed done it. Just thinking about the meaning of this was enough to make one shudder. Chapter 5284. Little did he know that he was overthinking. Lin Yi's technique could only be used on brainless beasts like the ancient giant lizard. It was useless against a golden core expert of his level. Even a foundation establishment expert would not be affected at all, let alone a golden core expert. It could only be used to deal with ordinary people. However, Shui Jianfeng did not know this. He was now like a bird startled by the mere twang of a bow. He was extremely fearful. Even though he was a golden core perfected expert now, his divine sense had not made any substantial progress. It was almost his weakest link, so he had no choice but to be fearful. Seeing Lin Yi's gaze sweep over, Shui Jianfeng immediately shivered. Afraid that he would have evil thoughts, he quickly forced a smile and said, "Thank you for your help." Although he said so, in his heart, he could not wait to quickly think of a way to kill Lin Yi. Biting the hand that feeds him, this guy was a typical ingrate. "No need, I'm not here for you." Lin Yi pursed his lips. "Then, let's part ways here." Shui Jianfeng was extremely cautious when he said this, afraid that Lin Yi would suddenly attack him. Although there was Bing Wuqing, a friend, present, and he did not believe that a foundation establishment perfected expert like Lin Yi could defeat a golden core perfected expert like him, the scene just now was too shocking. This guy could not be calculated with common sense. As expected, Lin Yi had no intention of letting him go just like that. He stretched out his hand to stop him. "Wait. What do you want?" Shui Jianfeng immediately felt as if he was facing a formidable enemy. At the same time, he desperately winked at Bing Wuqing, hoping that she would help him deal with Lin Yi. Even though they had their own ulterior motives when dealing with the ancient giant lizard, they were both members of the organization. He believed that Bing Wuqing would not turn against him over such a matter of principle, because that would be equivalent to betraying the organization. Little did he know. Bing Wuqing was not one of his people at all, but one of Lin Yi's people. He was really thinking too much. "Where's Lang Lang?" Lin Yi stared at him with an unfriendly expression. Although he didn't know what would happen after arriving at the primordial monitor lizard's territory, one thing was certain. Before this, there was no doubt that Shui Jianfeng had been chasing after Lang Lang. It would be fine if Lang Lang was safe and sound, but if anything were to happen to her, Lin Yi would never let Shui Jianfeng off today. She escaped long ago. Shui Jianfang hurriedly answered. Really? Lin Yi was skeptical. He ordered the water lily clone not far away, check it out. Shui Jianfang was stunned when he heard that. Only now did he finally notice the unfamiliar face beside Duanmuyu, and he couldn't help but be secretly surprised. Where did this person come from? He had more or less an impression of all the disciples who participated in the trial, but there was no such person. Moreover, Lin Yi actually asked him to investigate Leng Leng's matter. How was he supposed to investigate? At this moment, Bing Wuqing stepped forward to testify. Cole did escape. I saw her leave with my own eyes. Is that so? Lin Yi heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't have to think to know that it was Bing Wuqing who saved Leng Leng from Shui Jianfang's hands. At this moment, the water lily clone also said, that woman escaped safely and has now met up with the group from before. That's good. Lin Yi nodded. Can I leave now? Shui Jianfang didn't dare to stay any longer. Without waiting for Lin Yi's reply, he quickly retreated. At the same time, he said to Bing Wuqing in dissatisfaction, aren't you going to remove your stupid cage? Bing Wuqing frowned when she heard that and glanced at Lin Yi. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't object, she then waved her hand to remove the merciless ice threads. Shui Jianfang used the spectral snow steps without hesitation and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. For him, it seemed that the current Lin Yi was far more frightening than the primordial giant lizard. Lin Yi looked thoughtfully at the direction in which this guy had left. Actually, Shui Jianfang deserved to die 100 times for daring to attack Leng Leng and the others. It was just that Lin Yi's current strength and realm were too low. It was easier said than done to deal with an expert of Golden Core perfected. Of course. It wasn't impossible to really fight. After all, he also had Bing Wuqing, who was of Golden Core perfected, on his side. The key problem was that Lin Yi's current state was like an arrow at the end of its flight. He couldn't do anything. However, Lin Yi didn't show any of it on his face. He still maintained his calm demeanor. He looked at Bing Wuqing and asked, what's up with this guy? It seems like there's something he can't let us know. Thinking about it carefully, Shui Jianfang's behavior just now was actually very unusual. It was true that he was shocked by Lin Yi's shocking means, but he was still an expert of Golden Core perfected. Moreover, Bing Wuqing was with him in name. There was absolutely no need for him to be afraid of Lin Yi, and there was no need for him to put on such a fleeing posture. There must be something going on. That's right. Ever since he entered this primordial trial ground, he has been acting suspiciously. I was also very puzzled, so I have been following him. It's just that until now, I still haven't figured out his intentions. Bing Wuqing nodded. It was also because of this that she could save Leng Leng in time. Otherwise, with the primordial trial ground being so huge, how could there be such a coincidence? He didn't notice you. Lin Yi was a little surprised. Both of them were experts of Golden Core perfected. Even if Bing Wuqing had a deeper foundation, she shouldn't have been able to follow them all the way without being noticed. No matter what, Shui Jianfang wasn't an ordinary person. His senses shouldn't be so slow, right? I have this. Bing Wuqing raised her hand. An invisible ice thread was wrapped around her fingertip, which was connected to the direction that Shui Jianfang had left. There was no doubt that the other end of the thread was on Shui Jianfang. No wonder. Lin Yi suddenly understood. With this merciless ice thread as a guide, Bing Wuqing only had to follow far behind. There was no need for her to get close to the other's sensing range. As long as Shui Jianfang didn't notice this trick, she would never be able to escape his tracking. Then Bing Wuqing consulted. Do as you wish. Continue to keep an eye on him. I happen to be worried about this guy anyway. Lin Yi waved his hand. Since Xue Jianfeng dared to attack Lang Lang and the others, there would be a second time. With Bing Wuqing keeping an eye on him, it would be good to eliminate this hidden danger. Besides, if Bing Wuqing kept following him, it would be troublesome if she was seen by others. All right. Bing Wuqing responded, but she didn't leave immediately. Instead, she turned her gaze to the other people present. The first to bear the brunt was Fei Yongxing, who was the closest. Chapter 5285. Fei Yongxing's expression gave Bing Wuqing a clear message: this guy was not Lin Yi's man. Her relationship with Lin Yi could not be exposed yet, so to be safe, she might as well kill him to silence him. Once she was determined to kill, Bing Wuqing's merciless ice aura broke out of her body. Bing Wuqing had always been a clean and efficient person. As long as Lin Yi did not stop her, Fei Yongxing would not live to see tomorrow's sun. Thump. Fei Yongxing was so frightened that he knelt on the spot. He hurriedly begged for mercy. Masters Jr., I have admired Senior Lin since a long time ago. On account of the fact that I used to run errands for Senior Lin, please recommend me to join Senior Lin's team. I will go through fire and water, and sacrifice my life for him. Fei Yongxing wasn't an idiot, he'd be going to meet the King of Hell if he didn't show his loyalty now. He'd called himself Lin Yi's follower just to make himself look good, and he didn't have any qualms about this at all. In fact, it was exactly what he'd been looking for. Bing Wuqing looked at Lin Yi. Lin Yi thought about it and decided that he did not mind having such a little brother. However, he did not trust Fei Yongxing's character, so he took out a poisonous insect and threw it to him. Eat this. Fei Yongxing took it without hesitation and swallowed it. Of course, he knew that it was not something good, but he could not hesitate at this moment. Anyway, no matter what poison it was, as long as he did not betray Lin Yi, his life would not be in danger in the short term. Fei Yongxing passed the test successfully, but Bing Wuqing's eyes fell on Duan Muyu. He did not care whether she was Yi Ling's sect's senior sister or not. If she was not one of them, he would kill her. Duan Muyu was startled. She could clearly feel the murderous intent emanating from Bing Wuqing, and with her current strength, she was completely defenseless in front of the other party. She hurriedly assured them, "Don't worry, I won't go out and tell anyone." Bing Wuqing turned to Lin Yi for advice. To him, such a promise was nonsense. The most untrustworthy thing in the world was an empty promise. Whether Duan Muyu could live or not did not depend on what she swore, but on Lin Yi. It's fine. Forget about her. Lin Yi thought for a while and waved his hand. His previous experience had given him a good impression of Duan Muyu. Although she was a woman, she was straightforward, a little like a tomboy. Moreover, from the fact that she had come forward to save Fei Yongxing, whom she had no friendship with, it could be seen that this woman was very loyal. With her character, she would not spread the news. To be honest, in Lin Yi's opinion, Duan Muyu was much more reliable than Fei Yongxing. Even Fei Yongxing, who had taken the goo poison and become his underling, might not be as reliable as Duan Muyu, an outsider. Duan Muyu breathed a sigh of relief and looked at Lin Yi with a complicated expression. While he felt that this person was more and more unfathomable, he inexplicably trusted him more. After all, trust was mutual. When someone trusted you, you would naturally have a corresponding sense of trust for that person. Following that, Bing Wuqing's gaze turned towards the water lily clone. However, this time, she didn't have to ask anything. Lin Yi took the initiative and said, "Don't bother about it. That fellow is a spirit beast that I've just subdued." Spirit beast? Bing Wuqing paused for a moment. After a moment, her expression suddenly changed, and she said in shock, could it be the mastermind behind those plants? He had followed Shui Jianfang all the way here. Shui Jianfang had suffered at the hands of those plants, so naturally, he was no exception. Even now, he was still a little frightened by the dangers involved. That's right. Let me introduce you. This is the water lily protector of this place. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Its true form is actually a water lily. How rare. Bing Wuqing's reaction was exactly the same as Shui Jianfeng's. You and that human expert from just now are quite strong. However, you escaped because I didn't really make a move. Otherwise, you wouldn't have survived until now, the water lily protector said with a disdainful expression. This was the truth. Unless Bing Wuqing and Shui Jianfeng could crack the mirage reflection and find its true form like Lin Yi did, and at the same time, they had to have a method like the space and the jade pendant to imprison its true form so that its rippleless ancient well would lose its effect. Otherwise, no matter how many experts in golden core grade attainment came, it would be useless. Bing Wuqing was skeptical about this, but deep down, her respect for Lin Yi grew. After all, other things aside, the water lily protector's strength was undeniable. Lin Yi could even subdue such a spirit beast. There was really no one else with such skills. Then I'll leave first. Bing Wuqing bade farewell to Lin Yi and was about to leave right away. Wait a minute, bring Fei Yongxing along. It's not convenient for him to follow me, and he happens to be from your Snow Sword sect. No one will suspect anything if he follows you, Lin Yi instructed. All right. Bing Wuqing nodded, glanced at Fei Yongxing, and said, follow closely. Don't blame me if you get lost. Yes, I'll definitely follow closely, Fei Yongxing hurriedly said. Since Lin Yi had spoken, he had to follow Bing Wuqing closely, even if it meant risking his life. Otherwise, if he was really left alone, how could he leave this damned place alive, where danger lurked everywhere? Bing Wuqing immediately left with Fei Yongxing. Now, only Lin Yi, Duanmuyu, and the water lily clone were left. Duanmuyu asked, what do you plan to do next? Continue to look for Cold and the others, or go directly to the River of Divine Knowledge? Go to the River of Divine Knowledge. Anyway, they're heading towards the River of Divine Knowledge, so it'll be easier to find them there. Lin Yi paused, and then said, but you have to wait for me to recover first. Recover what? Duanmuyu did not understand for a moment. But Lin Yi did not speak, and directly stored the water lily clone into the space in the jade pendant. Then, he laughed bitterly and said, I'm injured. Injured? When? Duanmuyu was shocked. Since coming out of the water lily protector's nest, she had been with Lin Yi the whole time. Apart from easily subduing the primordial giant lizard's primordial spirit, she had not seen him make a move. Just now. As Lin Yi spoke, he had already sat down cross-legged. Then, something appeared in his hand. It was the water droplet that he had obtained from the kappa, which was specially used to heal the primordial spirit. Duanmuyu didn't have a clue what was going on. Lin Yi had looked like he was dealing with the ancient giant lizard with ease, and it had only been one hit from start to finish. The lizard didn't show any signs of resistance at all, so how was it injured? You want to know? Lin Yi relied on the water droplet to heal his primordial spirit as he looked up at her. Chapter 5286. The move I use to restrain the primordial giant lizard's primordial spirit is called the soul hooking hand, Lin Yi said truthfully. Soul hooking hand. Hearing this word, Duanmuyu felt an inexplicable chill run down her spine, and she could not help but say, why does it sound like a move of a heretic cultivator? That's right, this is a move of a heretic cultivator. I was once chased by an extremely powerful heretic cultivator on Heaven Stage Island. He wanted to use the soul-hooking hand to restrain my primordial spirit and then turn me into a puppet, Lin Yi said with a smile. He was talking about the West Mountain Sect Master. Since it's a move of a heretic cultivator, why do you also know it? Are you also a heretic cultivator? Duanmuyu subconsciously took a step back. Heretic cultivators were not only present on Heaven Stage Island, but also in the ancient Jianghu. Moreover, they were also existences that everyone wanted to kill. Do you think I'm a heretic cultivator? Lin Yi was a little speechless. No. Duanmuyu shook her head decisively. She had seen everything that Lin Yi had done. Although his various methods were unfathomable, they were completely different from being a heretic cultivator. If even Lin Yi was a heretic cultivator, then there would be a sea of heretic cultivators in this world. Then that's it. Lin Yi curled his lips. But since you're not a heretic cultivator, how do you know the moves of a heretic cultivator expert? Duanmuyu was puzzled. I have a deep impression of the soul-hooking hand. During this period of time, I just happened to be in the primordial spirit state, and coincidentally encountered a bottleneck. Since I had nothing to do anyway, I began to explore all kinds of messy divine sense skills, and more or less gained some results, Lin Yi said. So you learned the soul-hooking hand. Duanmuyu was dumbfounded. Although she had already seen Lin Yi's amazing insight when he was dealing with the Water Lotus Protector, in her knowledge, no matter how talented a super genius was, he had to learn any martial arts from the beginning. How could he figure it out by himself after seeing someone use it once? At the very least, it wouldn't be a problem if it was in the small Jianghu of immemorial era. After all, the top experts in the small Jianghu of immemorial era were only nascent soul-old monsters. If they were compared to the schools in the secular world, they would at most be at the level of junior high school, and they would only be at the basic level. Students at this level would naturally need to learn step by step, and no matter how talented they were, they wouldn't be able to come up with any new tricks. But Lin Yi was different. He was a mysterious ascending stage master, and he was able to kill a mountain opening stage master. He was a genius among geniuses. Even if he wasn't a proper university student, he was at least a high school student. Different levels, naturally different horizons. Junior high school geniuses were at most able to learn quickly and well, but high school geniuses had already entered the level of knowing an answer and being able to reverse deduce a whole set of answers on their own. I can't say that I've completely learned it. At most, it's just a beginner's understanding of it. Lin Yi said it very modestly, but it wasn't a lie, because what he had figured out now was at most an incomplete version of the soul-hooking hand, and its power was far less powerful and terrifying than the Shishan Old Master. Not only could the target not be higher than the Foundation establishment stage, but more importantly, every time he used it, he would suffer an extremely serious spirit backlash. If it weren't for the water droplets that were specially used to heal the spirit, Lin Yi wouldn't dare to use it at all. Even so, Duanmuyu was shocked speechless. What kind of freak was this? You. Why are you willing to tell me this? Duanmuyu asked hesitantly. Not only the current soul-hooking hand, but also the space in the jade pendant. These were all Lin Yi's secrets. Logically speaking, unless it was someone closest to him, according to the usual rules of the cultivation world, he would not reveal it to outsiders even if he was beaten to death. Why would he take the initiative to tell him this? Lin Yi thought about it very seriously, then shrugged indifferently and said, "No reason, I just feel that you're a reliable person, so I came to you on a whim." Do you really trust me that much? Duanmuyu couldn't help but ask in surprise. Are you not worthy of my trust? Lin Yi asked rhetorically. Duanmuyu choked for a long time, then shook his head speechlessly and said, I really can't see through you. The more powerful a person was, the more shrewd they were. This was human nature, but he didn't expect Lin Yi to be completely different. This guy seemed to be born to break common sense. No matter what he did, he was always so unexpected and subversive. Wouldn't it be troublesome if I was so easily seen through by others? Lin Yi chuckled. As he spoke, the water droplet in his hand had completely evaporated. To be precise, it was absorbed by him. Lin Yi immediately stood up, full of energy. His condition was much better than before he was injured. Not only was his injury completely healed, but he also seemed to have made some progress. However, it was only a slight improvement. He was still far from breaking through the barrier of the great perfection of the foundation establishment stage. TSK, this water droplet is really good stuff. If it weren't for the fact that the Kappa tribe was almost exterminated by that bastard Guardian Lotus, I might have been able to get a few more. What a pity. Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh. Don't you still have a holy water droplet? Duan Miyuv glanced at him. Now that the Guardian Lotus had fallen into Lin Yi's hands, the holy water droplet in its hand naturally fell into Lin Yi's hands. It originally wanted to use the holy water droplet to bargain and regain its freedom. Unfortunately, it was trapped in the space of the jade pendant and didn't have the right to do so. Lin Yi took out the holy water droplet with just a thought. How could it bargain? Yes, but it's still a pity, isn't it? With a wave of his hand, Lin Yi took out the holy water droplet. He held it in his hand and looked it up and down carefully. Although the crack was a pity, the flaw did not obscure the beauty. The purity and holiness it exuded was still intoxicating. One holy water droplet is worth at least dozens or even hundreds of ordinary water droplets. You're really greedy, Duan Miyu commented. She didn't have any ulterior motives for the holy water droplet. After all, her need for it was far less urgent than Lin Yi's. Moreover, it was the spoil of war from subduing the Guardian Lotus, so it should belong to Lin Yi alone. Everyone in the world is greedy. What's so strange about me being greedy? Lin Yi smiled, then looked at the holy water droplet and muttered thoughtfully, ordinary water droplets can help me improve while healing my injuries. If it's the holy water droplet, will it help me break through the barrier and advance to the gold core stage? You want to advance to the gold core stage? Duan Miyu looked surprised again. Don't you want to? Lin Yi asked. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.